And after a very quick rescheduling, we are live. Tom will be joining us very soon as his computer cooperates. But until then, I am here with the Mangold-slayer himself, Matt Kadish of the Salty Nerd Podcasts.
I have to tell you that he slays himself. I had nothing to do with it. So.
Yeah, well, you were there to hand him the tools for it.
Yes, I love James Mangold. He's a great guy.
Yeah. So how are you? Tell us. How you been since last time?
I've been doing good. I've been staying busy. We here at the Salty Nerd Podcast are gearing up for the Star Trek convention, which is next week. We're going to have a booth there, and hopefully we can get some interviews in and do some live streaming from the convention center and stuff like that. But up until that point, we've been doing our regular three show a week schedule. We've got a episode on the Highlander, first 3 Highlander films coming out this Friday. Last week we did Pirates of the Caribbean, so we've got a lot of stuff in the queue. So I've been busy editing that stuff and planning the different shows and doing my own live stream. So yesterday I did a live stream about how to fix Star Trek Discovery, and this Friday I'm doing a live stream with some established writers, and we're going to be doing like a regular show called Bad Writing, and we're going to be talking about how to kill a franchise on Friday's live stream. So all that's going on the Salty Nerd YouTube channel.
Yes, very cool. Also, you had a great interview with one of my fellow Norsemen, quite literally, which is also worth checking out.
Yes, Øystein Martinsen. Yes. From the Netflix original series Norsemen, or as they call it over in your part of the world, Viking Gang.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, it's literally Vikings, only in Norwegian, so it's like Vikingene, okay. which is Viking in plural form in Norwegian.
Yeah, we're a big fan of that show here on the Salty Nerd Podcast, and so we reached out to Øystein on Twitter, and he was down to come on, be interviewed. And now that he's done it, the rest of the cast has been contacting us, be like, "Hey, you want to interview me?"
Oh, nice, cool.
Very cool. So we're our goal now is to interview every single cast member from Norsemen, and kind of like get that out there, because we really love that show, and we think more people should be watching.
Yeah. It even has a warrior woman that actually has the physique of Tila and Evelyn of the Masters of the Universe series. Yeah.
Yeah. She's a great character too.
She really is. Speaking of great characters, we have some really great ones in the chat as well. We have Rick Lucy here, who's looking forward to seeing you on that Star Trek convention. So that should be good times. We have Stephen Otten here. Lady Ruskolin is here. Marks47 is here. Midnight Sun is wondering, where's Tom? Tom only has some minor computer difficulties, so he'll be here as soon as possible after that. We have Stephanie Janishek here. Just another red shirt is here. Another very fitting Star Trek theme on that note. Mark Miller also says, how to kill a franchise. Rehire Alex Kurtzman. Yeah, that'll do the trick. And we have Film Lars here, another great Norseman. And Neil says, oh, hey, Matthew was here. It's awesome. Yes, indeed. Ever the contrarian. So maybe we'll talk with some He-Man, with one of the comparatively few that actually liked Revelations, which there's nothing wrong with, as long as one has a good reason for it. And Natasha, of course, is a big fan of Vikingene, or Norsemen, as is the international title. We have here. Stephen Otten points out that there was a thumbnail change. Yes, there was, because that's also why we are a little bit later. The original guest had to reschedule, and he gave us a couple of hours notice of this, but due to time differences and stuff like that, we didn't really notice until like, oh, we are about to go live in 5 minutes. So, hey, And that was really awesome that our good friend Matt Kadish, who we're going to try to have on next week anyway, was ready and available to jump on. So that is much, much appreciated. Before we get started here, why don't you tell everyone about Vikings, like real quick? Do some promotion of the Norseman series, and how does it differ from the other Vikings series?
So first of all, it's a comedy, but it's kind of a weird comedy because they include a lot of like Game of Thrones type power plays in the show. So there is like a serious aspect to it, but it's juxtaposed with like the comedic aspect to it. So it's a weird mishmash, but somehow they get it to work. And I kind of like to tell people that it's kind of like the Office version of History Channel's Vikings, where a lot of the humor is just from the Vikings kind of talking to each other. And they're very normal when they talk. It's just kind of like, oh, I think I'm going to go rape this village right now, okay? And they're like, oh, okay, yeah, we'll see you later. And it's just like the humor is just so like hilarious and far out there. And then like when something serious happens, it's like shocking, but then like they make a joke out of it. So it's a fantastic show. I believe there are 3 seasons that are out there. So the first,
there are so far. And speaking of out there, we have Tom out here joining us. Although he looks just like me so far.
I was gonna say, is that your evil twin?
It's the bearded version of me, and we're both bearded, so you're not going to be able to tell the difference.
Yeah,
you can tell when Andre starts the show. There's no music. Everybody's like stacked on top of each other like this.
Yeah,
and And what's
this? I need you as a producer. So
what's this, Matt? You did something Highlander related, and you didn't ask me.
Well, I'm sorry, Tom, but you couldn't make it into the studio. So
there could be only one,
or more than one, depending on which sequel you're watching.
We don't count those.
Yeah, we get pretty deep into Highlander 2 in our upcoming episode.
What now?
The Quickening.
No idea.
No, the one that doesn't exist. It's like
yeah. There is only one Highlander movie. So.
Yeah.
Exactly. If you wanna make a duality out of it, you can watch 3, and that's it.
I don't even know about that. We talked about 3.
Great, but it's at least
it's none of the Highlander movies other than the first one are any good. Honestly,
I can't argue that.
I think that's a point on which there is fairly wide agreement.
Yeah. I've never seen a movie franchise that completely ignores all the other movies that came before it.
Yeah, the closest thing we have is like Star Trek Discovery.
Yeah. But I mean, like with this one, like every new movie that's come out in the series, there are 5 of them, has completely ignored everything that the previous movies did. It's really mind-boggling. If it wasn't for the TV show, I think that franchise would have died out a long time ago.
Well, and it doesn't help that like the third film does all it can to avoid the show as well.
Yeah. And the only reason that third film got made was because of the popularity of the TV show.
Yep.
And then in the fourth movie, they tried to cross over with the TV show and completely negated the first movie in doing so.
And everything else in between.
Yeah, it's a very strange franchise.
Yeah, and as we pointed out in our mini documentary thing we did when they announced Henry Cavill was attached to the remake, yeah, basically all the connective tissue ended up on the cutting room floor. So if you were a fan of the series, you kind of knew where you were at, but if you weren't, you would be completely lost.
Yeah, and actually in our episode, we went really deep into the behind-the-scenes drama that happened with the sequel, The Quickening, Highlander 2. And it's one of those weird situations where the story behind the making of the movie is far more fascinating than the actual movie itself. So,
we have our own retrospective at some point, hopefully, but probably closer to if and when the reboot ever comes out. But
it's going to be around that time. We don't have time before.
But so what's in the news today? So Bob Iger's wishing that ScarJo wouldn't have sued him. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, no, that was the initial topic. That was with our original guest, but now we are talking about something else exciting instead, namely exactly how they are going about making the new Indiana Jones movie without too much participation of one Harrison Ford, which we now know is why Mangold had such a freak out on Twitter that Matthew Kadish was kind of in the center of. So that's pretty awesome. And yeah, as Dookie12 says, no sue me, please. That's exactly right. Before we get into that, though, I'm just going to go through the super chats that we have so far real quick here. Because we do have a tiny little backlog already. Let's see here. We have Culture Casino, who says for $5, fresh coffee, fresh water, half an avocado. I'm ready for this one. Tons of reasoning this is happening now with CAA and other agencies. Disruption. Yes, indeed. But of course, we're going to get more into that. Well, maybe we'll touch on it later here. But that's going to be the main topic for Friday for certain. For certain. And then says hi, gents. Hello, everyone. And Midnight Sun says hello, everyone. Since Fury was emasculated in Captain Marvel, would you like to see the World War II iteration through the multiverse to restore his badass mystique? Kadish, would you like to see the multiverse iteration of Nick Fury being more of the Nick Fury and the Howling Commandos of the original comics?
I guess. I mean, I was never a big Nick Fury fan.
Will it be David Hasselhoff?
I was about to say.
I think my favorite incarnation of the character was the one Garth Ennis did, where he was like a psychopath.
Yeah,
I like that one.
And a friend of Garth Ennis, Punisher. That was pretty badass. And yeah, for those that don't wonder, there actually is another Nick Fury solo movie. It was made for TV back in the late 90s, starring David Hasselhoff as Nick Fury. So yeah, for those that don't know, it's a thing. No, it's not great. But so you already have a Nick Fury multiverse, so to speak.
Indeed you do.
Darius Münchhausen sent us a popcorn super sticker. Gran Wasu 42 sent us a sausage super sticker. And Valiant Renegade, our good friend who has a channel that's doing great, has hit more than 1,000 subs, but needs a few more watch hours. So go out and check out his channel for some great analytic financial takes. So check out Valiant Renegade. And he says, morning, indie Deepaked. Oh hell, I got a few weeks ago for my most popular vid ever suggestion exactly this after set pics leaked. Preach. And yes, that's exactly right. A few weeks ago, set pics leaked of an old man with who was kind of looked like Harrison Ford, but kind of not, who was on set with like dots on his face. The kind of dots that you would expect in case of some kind of CGI enhancement, and that is exactly what it appears that we are going to be getting with Indiana Jones Part 5. And this is a story, I'm going to bring it up on screen here.
All about how my life got flipped, turned upside down. Oops, sorry.
That's actually getting rebooted.
Yeah, I know. We've been reporting on it for like 2 years, Andre.
Yeah, well, it's closer to happening
when
now.
When it comes to the Fresh Prince, I'm up on that shit.
Yeah, I figured, but for those that might not know. But let's...
I used to be a huge Will Smith fan until he became Will Smith.
Yeah, you liked Will Smith until he became Will Smith.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Back when he was the Fresh Prince with DJ.
Exactly.
Anyway, this comes to us from a new up-and-coming webpage called That Park Place, which is about all kinds of Disney revelations. And one of the writers that have recently joined this webpage is none other than WDW Pro, trusted Disney insider that has broken tons of scoops before. And here in this article published yesterday, he has a new one writing, Lucasfilm's secret deep fake weapon for saving Indiana Jones 5. And then he begins with, I've been following this story for about 2 weeks now, working on gathering the info needed to make it to publication. I had planned for it to be the first or second article I posted for that Park Place. And finally, I'm excited to tell you why Lucasfilm and James Mangold are so confident they can pull off Indiana Jones 5, even when the majority of the film thus far has been filmed without Harrison Ford as Dr. Jones. And the reason then, of course, is Shamook. And Shamook is someone that we at Midnight's Edge actually have had some very limited dealings with, but we'll get into that afterwards. For those out of the loop, Harrison Ford injured himself during an action scene filming involving a train. The injury was a re-aggravation of an older injury and could have resulted in surgery, and still may. That's being kept secret. So you see here, we suddenly got more information about the nature of the injury. The Walt Disney Company released a statement about the situation, which mostly downplayed the severity. However, commenters such as myself, again that's WDW Pro writing here, and Grace Randolph were able to discover that the film crew was being told something entirely different. A 6 to 8 week delay in filming for Ford, sans some green screen work, was instituted, and the actor was seen walking around London in a sling. We're now in early August, and Ford still has not done any significant filming. In his place, 2 actors were brought on board to play Indiana Jones. Each actor was covered in facial dots, just like Ford had been as well, with the intent to come back and apply a CG mask to their faces in post-production so that they'll look just like Harrison Ford. And here then we see the dots over the face that is being referred to. The answer to that is that the movie has been delayed a long time over the past years, and being stuck in a pandemic didn't help either. Harrison Ford looked a little too rough for the role, despite being incredibly in shape for a 78, now 79-year-old. Thus, CGI is planned for basically the entirety of the film to de-age the superstar legend. Well, that's a lot of CGI, right? In fact, it's enough CGI that you would think producers would worry the film could fall into that uncanny valley we've seen so often when CGI has been used too much. After all, Indiana Jones' previous film featured many CGI blah 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 blah, didn't really work out. And Lucasfilm has had very spotty results with CGI facial work. And then it refers to Princess Leia in Red 1. And here I would like to add, it doesn't say so here, but I would like to add that the reason for that is that they have their own proprietary de-aging technology that was developed for Tron Legacy. And it was never all that great, and deepfaking is better. And that then gets us to the main link of the story. Sources say that Lucasfilm is going to be leaning on a hybrid proprietary system that will now incorporate famous YouTube deepfaker Shamook's skills to refine the process. Hired by Lucasfilm in July, my sources say that he was brought on specifically because of the level of difficulty Indiana Jones is going to present, a level that was beyond what Industrial Lights and Magic was confident it could fulfill. After all, Indiana Jones is going to be the first movie in which the lead character needs CGI facial masking in realistic settings for practically the entire movie. As Yeah, and
Well, you should point out who. Oh, I was gonna say the Shmook guy. Did they say who he is here in the article?
well, they say that that he's a YouTuber, and so we're not gonna dox him any more than that. That
Well,
it's that is
no,
Shamuk. But yeah, this is someone that
I ain't
we
talking about
have.
doxing. Do you know who he is? He's the guy who fixed Luke.
Yeah. Yeah, not only that, he's also the guy that we have been trying to reach out for an interview together with Gary J. Tunnicliffe. And it almost happened, apart from the fact that he was busy with work commitments and other stuff like that, so it never happened. But if you recall back to our previous interviews with Gary J. Tunnicliffe, this is exactly what he has been talking about, the potential of deep faking and exactly what can be done with it. And he also said that this Shamuk guy, he's a rising star. He's going to go places. And that's kind of exactly what we're seeing here. So, Kadish-slayer, or not Kadish-slayer, but rather Mangold-slayer, how confident are you that we are not going to be able to tell over the course of the entire movie that it's not actually Harrison Ford we'll be seeing on the screen? Do you think it's going to work, or is it going to be a really uncanny feeling over it all?
Well, I think that the fact that they're bringing in this guy, because if anyone out there has seen what he did with the Mandalorian ending with Luke Skywalker, you'll know this guy's legit. I don't know what his process is for the deep fakes that he does, but he significantly improved the look of young Luke from the Mandalorian. Again, I don't know how he did it, but
he's a programmer in his real life. So yeah. So he knows his code, and he knows how he evidently has taken. I would imagine, he hasn't told me this, but I would imagine that he has simply taken existing deep faking software, and then he has improved them in ways that no one else have been able to.
Well, obviously ILM is bringing in a specialist for this project, but I'm just thinking that this alone is probably going to blow up the budget for this thing even more than it already was. So I'll be interested to see how it turns out. I know that something like a movie like Captain Marvel, where they de-aged Sam Jackson throughout the whole thing.
I heard most of that was makeup, though.
It might have been, but I didn't notice any kind of wonky CG stuff in that situation. With this one, though, I mean, they've got the actor cooperating with them. They've got some innovative technology, so they might be able to pull it off. But I just keep thinking, I just keep seeing dollar signs kind of go up and down when I see Indiana Jones 5, because this movie, it was already expensive to begin with, and now if they're going to have to do all this stuff to replace Harrison Ford, essentially it's going to be even more expensive, and it could lead to a bad precedent, I guess you could say, where future movies, they could just take deceased actors or actors who are a little bit too old to do action stuff like Bruce Willis or whatever, and just CGI them over younger actors or completely replace them with CGI.
It's funny you mentioned that, because our conversations with Gary were about that very thing, about how actors are already having themselves saved into a computer in case they need to be de-aged at a later date.
Yeah, it's called digital likeness rights.
Yep.
It's a new thing that Hollywood is doing, where the actors and the people who manage them are basically selling these rights, especially as they get older and towards the end of their career. And I think the estates of deceased actors are also kind of exploring this thing where they can basically sell the likeness rights of the actor themselves and their voice and stuff like that. And the studios will then pay a licensing fee for those rights, depending on the movie that they do. And it could be the future of filmmaking. So you'll see a lot of dead actors kind of be resurrected for odd roles in occasional films. So
I'm still looking forward to Romance of the Pink Panther, starring Peter Sellers.
Yeah, Peter Sellers might be good. I heard Brando was a big kind of proponent for this, where the Brando estate is kind of he was difficult to work with when he was alive, but the digital version of him is much more agreeable.
Here's the thing: if you get me into, you don't need to have me. You can just get a bagel, and the bagel can play me, and I'll just do the voice.
And that's kind of like ironic when you have like famous actors and people say, well, they're a dream to work with ever since they died.
Yeah, and I could see an actor like Bruce Willis who just doesn't give a crap anymore, and he's like very lazy. Where he's like, just sell my digital likeness rights to whoever wants them. I'll sit back and collect my.
I believe the quote from Sylvester Stallone was "greedy and lazy," Matthew.
Yeah. But all of Bruce Willis's
for him. Yeah, sorry, carry on.
All of Bruce Willis's current movies, like he shows up for like one day of shooting, and they pay him like a couple $1 million, and they just use a stand-in for like all like the behind the head shots and stuff like that for the rest of the movie. And at a certain point, he's just going to be like, just use my digital likeness, and I'll sit here on the beach and collect a royalty check.
He was saying that back in the 90s.
Yeah.
No, you're saying, but for those who don't know the joke, I guess the reason that Bruce Willis was not in Expendables 3 was because he wanted, was it $1 million or $1.5 million for like one day's worth of work?
Yeah, which is what he gets now, I think, for all of his A24 movies.
So Sly went out in the public and said Bruce Willis was greedy and lazy. That's why he's not in the third film. But no, I think I kind of see this whole CGI thing is going to be this Indiana Jones thing. I'm going to compare it to how I felt going into TMNT 2014, which is kind of timely considering the news we just got as well. But walking into that film, I thought, okay, oh shit. The worst thing about this movie is going to be, how the turtles look, right? Boy, was I wrong. That was the least of that movie's problem. So I have a feeling that this CGI thing is going to be the least of Indiana Jones's problem.
Well, what's interesting is that, we're kind of on the precipice here of a new style of filmmaking in the future where, since the beginning of the Hollywood film industry, you've had to take a camera, get a crew, go out on location, like have a cast and stuff like that, physically film stuff, come back, edit it, and release it. And now we're getting to the point where all these different elements are coming into use where we don't need to physically go and shoot a movie anymore. Everything can be done in computers. You might bring the actors in on the soundstage to do like the motion capture of their performances and stuff like that. But for the most part, like that is a far more cost-effective and logistically easier way of making movies than actually going out on location and doing stuff like this. So at this point, when we're getting to the point where we can like deep fake stuff this realistically, that means that completely animated actors at a certain point, we're not going to have that uncanny valley anymore. We're going to be not going to be able to distinguish the completely animated figure from an actual real person, at least in the movie space. And so at a certain point, studios are going to find out that it's far more cost effective and easier to do a completely CGI movie, just bringing the actors in on sound stages and motion capturing them, than it is to actually do a full-blown production. And once we get to that point, basically every movie is going to be an animated film.
Well, and Darth Maul asks a very poignant question here. If these actors are dead, how will they speak and sound? Well, first of all, if you're a voice actor, you're going to be getting a lot of work. The other side of it is there's actual algorithms now where they can change voices.
Yeah. Audio deepfakes.
This is another story that we never really covered, but I sent to Andre a while back as an evergreen story. So now is a good time to kind of pop it out, at least in passing anyway. There's already technology that exists that you can watch, say, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest in French or Spanish, and you would not even know that the film was not originally filmed in French or Spanish because the algorithm changes the lips to match the sounds of the words, and not only that, it deep fakes the voice. So it sounds like Jack Nicholson or whoever the fuck is talking. And it's all done digitally. And you can't tell. It's scary as shit.
Yeah, what's interesting about the audio deepfake stuff is like, so for instance, when you have Marlon Brando, who's an actor who's been dead for a while, but he has a large body of work out there.
Yeah,
you can take his body of work.
A large body in general, but yeah.
Yeah, you can take his work and basically analyze all the speech he's done throughout all of his movies, feed that into the AI, and then they can recreate pretty much any kind of phonetic sound from his previous lines and stuff like that to give you like any noise you want. So you could have an actor who just uses his normal voice to act out the scene, and then the AI replaces Brando's voice using the same inflections as the actor. So you get the performance, but it sounds just like Brando. And an alternative to that, which is actually really interesting, is there's AI being developed and kind of pioneered right now where it's text to speech. So you put the script into the AI and it spits out a realistic sounding, non-computer sounding version of that using the actor's voice. And so there's a lot of stuff like that's just on the horizon that is just now starting to kind of come to prominence that could completely change the way that we make movies.
Well, not only that, it could completely change movies. And I think that's the scarier part. And I think one of your partners in crime is in the chat here, Mr. Matt.
Hey, Matt.
How you doing, Matt? We could probably send him the link too.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the thing though that's scary is not only are you looking at it that they can create new things with these old actors that may be gone or a lot older than they would be. Like look at a movie like The Irishman would be an example where this technology would be used, and it probably would help the film. Considering that was probably one of the downfalls of that movie, as far as I was concerned, was it was really hard for me to buy Robert De Niro walking around like an 80-year-old and trying to believe he's 40. That just didn't work for me. But what the scary part is the altering, because that's something that we've kind of come up against here a lot recently. And I know that's a little bit off topic from the Indiana Jones part, but I think it is important because you have the talks now where they're talking about inserting new ads into old films. And all these other things that they can do. And how far then are we from where they can actually alter an actor's performance within a film without us even realizing it? Like there's all kinds of
I have one example of like what they could do. If you, for instance, if you look at Back to the Future, when those things were filmed, the actors, like most of the lead cast, those that played the parents and sometimes even grandparents, like I forget the actor's name. He who plays Biff Tannen, for instance, he's like the one actor to play himself in like 3 different states of life. When he's like young in himself, middle-aged, and old, he played all of those 3 varieties. And of course, now in retrospect, when one knows exactly how he did age, it could be tempting for Tom Wilson. Thank you. It could be tempting for some savvy producer out there to go and deep fake over that performance with how Tom Wilson actually ended up looking. As an example.
Yeah, if they want to spend the money.
But that's like the thing, though, that deep faking is something that is much cheaper than how they traditionally would do it, because the thing is that you only do like the animation really once, and then you have the AI that superimposes it over everything else. So all you have to do at best is some touch-ups here and there where the mask begins and ends and stuff. But beyond that, it's not like traditional CGI where you have to animate every single frame. It doesn't work like that. You animate it once, and then the AI does most of the work after you've done it like that one time.
Yeah. Well, the real question here is, for Indiana Jones 5 at least, is that did they always intend to de-age Harrison Ford? And is the big secret that Mangold was refusing to talk about when he was going on his Twitter rant? Is it that this is a young Indiana Jones story? This is something that was told between, Temple of Doom and The Last Crusade, and that's like going to be the big shocker when they reveal the footage and stuff.
I don't know about that. The rumor I heard is that the film like crosses over with something in the past, so there's flashbacks, but it has something to do with something Indy screwed up in the past, and has to do with time travel and the scientist that was it, Mads Mikkelsen. Is he the one who's in it? I don't know.
Matt Mikkelsen, yeah. He's like, we were led to believe that he would be playing some kind of Werner von Braun character.
Yeah, exactly. And something in my guesstimate is, from what I remember hearing vaguely, was his character invents some kind of time machine. Indy fucks up, doesn't stop him, but thinks he like blew himself up or something in the past, and then realizes in the 60s that the dude's back and he actually just time jumped or something like that. So it's like a whole bunch of like that kind of crap.
That sounds awful.
It does. I hope it's not true. I hope it's one of those fake leaks.
You know what's so disturbing is when you have like these fake leaks, and who knows how they come up with them. But when the fake leaks turns out to be better than the movie we end up getting, like for instance, I remember like leading up to The Last Jedi, there were like loads of like fake leaks and rumors and stuff like that, or maybe they were real leaks but distractions. And you know what they all had in common? They were better. What we ultimately got, every last one of them.
Well, that wasn't a high bar.
No, that's what I mean. It wasn't. Let's be careful with like saying, "Oh, that sounds awful," because maybe it'll sound good by comparison to what we'll end up getting.
Yeah, if Lucasfilm excels at one thing, it's disappointing the fan base.
Yeah, like they've taken that to like an art form all of its own.
Boy, everybody's having a noisy morning this morning, and I'm already getting some messages that people are having some issues with YouTube as well. So yeah,
there's been a lot of that lately.
So hopefully you're not having any issues listening to us. But yeah.
So yeah, and if you do, then just refresh.
Sometimes that helps.
Will be fine. Yeah, it usually does. It usually does. All right. And we before we move on, we got a new channel member. Daryl Brewer joined us while we were live, so that's awesome, and welcome as a member. And then we also have a couple of more super chats that I'm going to go through here before we move on with the rest of the story here, or with other stories. Then we have Super Blubber Plus, and I can't bring this one up on screen, so you're just gonna have to listen. But Super Blubber Plus says, maybe Lucasfilm hired that YouTuber deepfake artist to work on Indy 5. And yes, that's exactly what they did. That kind of like was the main story here. And then Lady Ruskolin said for £5, I mean, the news broke recently that Lucasfilm hired the YouTuber who went viral fixing Luke Skywalker's face in The Mandalorian. I guess we know why. Yes, indeed. And that's what he's been doing on his channel. He's been fixing like really bad de-aging jobs, in addition to doing other really cool stuff. Cultured Casino says CGI will be the death knell for Jones in space. And yeah, they may be going to space, where all franchises go to die. Dean Kranz says for $5, I have the entire Sergeant Fury and his Howling Commandos run. Cap got frozen in ice, and Nick took an anti-aging drug. He helped Steve adjust to the present. Yes, that's the original canon. Dashty says for $5 Canadian, well, Casino, Indy has to get that nasty Austrian guy who ruled Germany during that skirmish in the 40s off the moon someday.
There's that rumor as well that has something to do with that too.
Yeah,
that's why the other rumor is Indy goes to space.
Personally, I'd rather see Iron Sky one more time. For those that don't know it, that's like a low-budget, self-funded Finnish movie, which is quite fun actually, about those nasty German people from that skirmish in the 40s having resided on the moon this whole time, and now they're coming back again. And they made a sequel too, and there's dinosaurs in it for some reason. But anyway,
dinosaurs.
Yeah. Daryl Brewer says that will this make Indy 5 fall in the same category as the old Disney films like Bed Knobs and Broomsticks or the original Mary Poppins? Well, thematically, no, but in terms of method, yeah, this would be the modern day equivalent, I guess. Hypergiver 2 says they'll take his methods, then kick him to the curb.
Yeah.
Daryl Brewer also wonders, but will Digital Brando have pants on?
No,
That's
I
a good
don't
question.
wear pants digitally either. They get in the way of my acting abilities.
You will recall that Max Headroom did not have pants because there wasn't enough processing power when that show was made for it. Mobile
Just
Recluse.
think how easy that show would be to make now compared to what they went through then.
Yeah.
Just
Especially...
a fake make it look like it was CGI. And not only it was cheap ass CGI too at the time. Like they would have been able to do that in like 1996 by that point. It's like old.
That's the funny thing. That's the funny thing about Max Headroom, that the only CGI thing was like the background of his video screen, whereas he was like wearing makeup.
Yep, it was just editing.
Yeah. And the comment that came in just now, Tim Scorpion wonders about the recent Midnight's Edge video. What was the issue about the Revelation crew coming clean and admitting the design changes were due to legal reasons? Well, it's not that they admitted. There's like two things here. Like the Revelation crew, they have not admitted that any changes were made for legal reasons. That was Kevin Smith, who was the one who said that Revelation can't be an actual sequel to the Filmation series for legal reasons, because they don't have the license to or the rights to Filmation, which is why they call it a spiritual sequel, which is code for it's completely and utterly unrelated. They just want you to dupe you into thinking that it's a sequel. Well, the ones that did come clean, that was the crew of Star Trek Discovery. They were the ones that said that they had been instructed to make changes for this and this reason. And they even argued that, yes, it was legal reasons because of the whole rights situation in the aftermath of the Viacom split in 2005. So that would be the Star Trek Discovery crew. But the situations are not identical, but there are similarities.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin actually came right out and said it had to be different. That's the thing. It's just kind of an oddball. It's almost like more convoluted, and we're trying to get to the actual bottom of it. And we don't know if it's 25% different, but that just seems to be the going rate.
Yeah, that's why we say we don't know there's 25%, but we're just like saying that it's a similar situation, and
there's always weird licensing issues in Hollywood where basically, like, if you have a certain type of rights holders, you can't do exactly what they did unless you like negotiate with them to get the license to do so. So for instance, a great example of this is The Witcher on Netflix, right? The first season of Netflix's The Witcher series changed so much stuff that you're like, well, they already designed all this crap in the games. Why don't you just use what the games use in the TV series? And the fact is that the video game license is separate from the TV license. Yep. And so they couldn't legally use anything that the video games created without going to CD Projekt Red and striking some type of deal where they could start using CD Projekt Red's video game designs in the TV show. And so, like, just as a normal consumer of entertainment, people don't think about this stuff. But when you start getting into like the nitty gritty legal aspects of the entertainment industry, this stuff is very prevalent where if Netflix got the rights to do a Masters of the Universe thing, it was from the toy maker Mattel, right? But the original cartoon is that license and those rights still reside with Funimation.
It might even be more convoluted than that.
Yeah, totally. I'm just trying to kind of give a overview of how this stuff works, and so
exactly. So yeah, carry on.
And so the animation studio that they got for the Netflix reboot, changed the look and feel of the characters and stuff like that, so that there wouldn't be any like overlap with the rights issues. In fact, Star Trek's a great example of how companies can really screw over an IP based off of like a very convoluted licensing structure, because the whole reason that J.J. Abrams had to change so much stuff for his Star Trek interpretation was because Paramount didn't want it infringing on the original series license that they make so much money off of. So they had to create a whole new license just for him. And they had to make sure that because he was doing stuff in the original series time frame, that things were different enough so that the licenses didn't overlap. And that's one of the reasons why they started mandating all these changes. And then when Discovery was also set in that same time period, they had to mandate even more changes because that was a separate license as well. So if you want to get really wonky and in the weeds, like the Hollywood legal structure of like licenses and rights and stuff like that can get really overblown and convoluted. It's stupid.
Yeah, and it gets even worse with She-Ra and that's why I think She-Ra's already over there, because that's the other thing is we're trying to figure out and get to
She-Ra's been over there for a long time.
Yeah, because Filmation has like I think 50-50 rights deal with She-Ra. So it's so convoluted, and then you've had the company change hands so many times, and that's where Universal gets involved because it went from Hallmark, which turned it over or sold it to some like holding company, which then changed to Classic Media, which then sold it to DreamWorks Animation, which then got sold out to Universal. So it's like this big, long line of things. And you have certain characters like Orko that were created by Filmation. So, and I'm surprised Andre didn't point it out in his video that we dropped this morning, that Orko was different from the start. Like he was completely more than 25% different than the original version. So I think there's a lot that goes into this. And there's also the comic book that ran in the 2010, I think it started. So there's also maybe some rights that have to do with that too. So we're trying to get to the bottom of it all, guys, but it's a very messy mess, even worse than Star Trek.
Much worse. I mean, Star Trek was easy because that was a relatively recent thing. I mean, the problem with He-Man started back in the 90s, and obtaining documents from that time, now 30 years later, is somewhat easier said than done.
It is indeed. And
I'm sure they're all on some type of North Korean server somewhere.
Yeah.
The thing with Star Trek, though, too, is a lot of that had to do with licensing, as far as like, they could do, like we pointed out in the videos, they could do whatever they want from, certain classic elements of the shows. They just couldn't sell it. Like if they wanted to do a Tribble, for instance, they could do it. But if they wanted to make a Tribble toy, then that's all CBS's at that time. But if they wanted to change it enough, then they could resell it under their own Bad Robot license. So
one of the weird things about the CBS Paramount split back then is that so CBS owned the rights to the TV shows of Star Trek, right, and then Paramount owned the rights to the movies of Star Trek. But anything that was taken from the TV shows to be used in the movies belonged to CBS, and Paramount would have to license that. So even the name Star Trek, because it started off with the TV series, had to be licensed out for the movie. And it got super complicated. So like anything that was invented for the movies that did not exist in the TV shows previously, Paramount owned, but everything that was originally in the TV shows, CBS owned. And so you had this weird, complicated like situation where these two companies were trying to, license stuff from one another. And at the time, Les Moonves, who hated Star Trek and hates all things science fiction, he was in charge of CBS. And he was making it really hard for Paramount to do anything. And so like when they created the new Trek license for J.J. Abrams, J.J. wanted to do like Tom said, like a bunch of stuff, with Tribbles and comic books and toys and all this stuff. But then he found out after he, committed to the deal that CBS basically had veto power on anything he wanted to do. And they were like, well, all this stuff you want to do, JJ, it interferes with the licensing that we're doing for the Star Trek TV show, so you can't do that stuff. And JJ eventually got so frustrated that he just kind of like threw his arms up in the air and said, "I'm done with Star Trek." And this was right after the 2009 movie came out, and so like he was kind of checked out by the time he was doing Into Darkness, and getting ready to move on to Star Wars.
It got so bad with the Ethereum there that he actually asked Paramount to stop producing classic Trek shit, and they told him to go fuck himself.
Yeah, yeah. Stop making all this free money.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing is, unfortunately now, and takes us to the whole Kurtzman thing, which I'm sure we're going to talk about here too as well. But like, why in the world would they do this? I don't know, but we'll get to that here shortly. I think we have a couple other super chats to get to in the meantime, though.
Yes, we do. And moving on with those, and another one can get up on screen first. Xenobit wonders, but Tom, the real question is who the hell has the rights to the background music?
I'm sure that's over at Hallmark, through the Hallmark deals over at Universal.
Yeah,
that's another reason why they don't have the theme song as well.
Yeah, and the intro, everything, because again, even though it's music, it was made for hire music that was made, or work for hire that was made for the Filmation.
A lot of the music comes from,
although a lot of the music was reused.
Yes.
From Spartacus and the Sun Beneath the No. Mysterious Cities of Gold.
That's
much of the music was reused from the Mysterious Cities of Gold, but that's because it was the same composers, and they kind of had the rights to that music, so it was there to reuse. So to make it like easy, they just do like a hero theme and for like generic background.
Yeah, I was gonna say
reuse the great stuff.
The only themes that I think were new were obviously the He-Man theme,
which
that was reused for Tila, which is just a slowed down version, and then the Orko theme I think were the only other ones.
That was also new. Whereas like the Snake Mountain, and the Skeletor theme, that's exactly the same music that was taken from like the Atlantic Crossing music of the Mysterious Cities of Gold, which incidentally is one of the greatest animated series ever. No, strike that. It is not one of. It is the greatest animated series ever, in my personal opinion.
And then we also had this in between there, who said Tila didn't get her body shape from Gal Gadot. They got her body shape from Dwayne Johnson's ex-wife, Danny Garcia.
Yeah, I see. That's more like it.
That's a little bit more in line, yeah. Yes, indeed. So I'm assuming you saw that video this morning too. Thanks for watching that. And that's all we can bring up on screen right now. So you're gonna have to go back to the classic super chats.
Yes, gonna go through them real quick and get caught up here before we move on. Mobile Recluse says in Rogue One, the Tarkin deep fake fit well in the story. Not so sure if doing this all the time will work, though. Yeah, well, we shall see. And Great Cthulhu says for €5, I'm a game translator. Machine learning gets more and more important. They start replacing us bit by bit. Haha. Why would they grant actors reprieve? Well, probably because it's cheaper. Or it gives them opportunities that... yeah, it's like a scary thing, but that's because it's cheaper. It's doable. I mean, and it's cheaper and faster to deep fake Harrison Ford than wait for him to heal. Especially as it said in the article that he's too old and haggard looking compared to what they want of him anyway. So
they got to get this movie done. I mean, because I think part of this is contractual, and we brought this up before. And this is not even a secret. Because I think Bob Iger put it in his book, or it was in an interview where he flat out said that the only way they got Harrison Ford to do The Force Awakens was promise him a fifth Indiana Jones film.
And then this says for $10, Jeff Segal, creator of Exo Squad, claims that he owns the creator rights to Exo Squad, but yet NBC Universal DreamWorks Animation owns the distribution and copyrights. Well, they're all screwed then, because no one can do anything without each other, and that's how properties end up on ice.
Yeah.
And Nova Zero says, look up Jarbo the Hutt to see how someone can be wholly replaced when it comes to audio. And Namcos says for £5 British, the Ben Richards, the Running Man, deepfake springs to mind. Yeah, that's a scary thing where they use like some editing and stuff like that to basically give him frame Schwarzenegger's character, and yeah, deep faking can be used for loads of nefarious means. It means you can no longer trust video footage. Brian Tuttle says, imagine the carnage that could be produced with the digital likeness of Nicolas Cage. Yeah, that is a topic.
That's a missed opportunity. He could have been a good Carnage.
He could have, absolutely.
I'm going to eat your head.
Face off.
I'm going to take your face off.
Yeah. And Xenobit also says Shuki Levy is the best music composer of the 80s and 90s. Come at me, bro. Yep. He's the one that made the music for the original
with
He-Man.
Haim Saban, I'm saying it right?
Yeah, Haim Saban and Shuki Levy. And yeah, no argue for me. They were absolute geniuses. And with that, we're caught up on Super Chats. So, Tom, what other news do we have today?
Well, since we have Matt here, we definitely got to talk Kurtzman. Because, yeah, as we were just discussing, J.J. Abrams single-handedly did the best job he could to destroy the Star Trek franchise. But he wasn't finished. No. He had help from one Alex Kurtzman, and CBS thought he was doing such a great job fucking Star Trek up. They decided to give him a whole nother 4 years to do it. Now you're wondering why I say 4 years when his deal was for like 5. Well, that's because they renewed his contract early. So technically he's getting an extra 4 years, but he's getting a buttload more money to do it. Because I think his original deal was for what, 40 million, Matt? And now the rumored one now is 160.
I think it was 30 million was the initial deal.
Yeah,
and then
something like that.
The new one's around 150. We don't really know the actual figure.
Right. So I kind of go on the high end because I'm assuming that, yeah, there's all kinds of bonuses and shit involved. Because that's what happens is if they get certain things done at certain times and then they get a bonus. So, Okay. So what in the world would possess CBS to do such a thing? I mean, I have a few reasons where I think, and I'm sure Andre does too, but I got to hear from you. What in the world do you think happened here?
All right. So full disclosure, I used to work at Paramount, so I kind of have a little bit of insight into that studio's thinking. And the whole thing with Viacom, CBS / Paramount is that they're very creatively bankrupt. Like they're not a studio that understands creativity. They understand stock price and the bottom line, and that's one of the reasons that led to the initial split between CBS and Paramount and all the problems with Star Trek. So if anyone's interested in learning more about that, they can go to my MEitM account, which is medium.com/@MatthewKadish. And I have a series of 4 articles up there called Star Trek Civil War, which kind of goes through the history of Star Trek and the licensing structures and stuff like that. So if you want to educate yourself on, just the malfeasance that Paramount has traditionally suffered through in terms of dealing with Star Trek, go check that out. I also have a new article that came out 2 days ago on RT.com, all about the Kurtzman New Deal. And for those of you who don't know, this is an overall deal, which is different from his previous deal, which was basically an overall deal. It's kind of like an exclusivity deal. So the studio's paying more to a production company for exclusive rights to their content. So normally with a regular deal, the production company, if they pitch it to Paramount and Paramount doesn't like it, they could go shop it to other networks or studios or whatever. Under an overall deal, if Paramount doesn't like the idea, they can't shop it around. It's all exclusive. And that's what Kurtzman's new deal is. Now, a lot of people are like they read the New York Times article and they saw that George Cheeks said that Alex Kurtzman is the future of their studio and stuff like that. And kind of scratching their heads is like, Alex Kurtzman has long been known to be like a terrible writer, someone who's creatively bankrupt, someone who has no artistic integrity. He'll just do whatever the studio mandates. So in that respect, the studios love working with him because he's very easy to work with. But more importantly than that is that even though he's not creatively a very good executive, from the production standpoint, he's extremely good because one of his talents is he's able to get multiple TV shows up and running and out there kind of producing stuff independently. So he'll come in for like the first season or whatever, get it up and running, then move on to something like that after he hands it over to his team.
So what you're saying is that he can't make anything good, he can only make crap, but at the very least he can make a whole lot of crap.
Yeah, I'm saying that Kurtzman is someone who's quantity over quality. And so basically what CBS is looking at, particularly in terms of Star Trek, is that he was able to create 4 Star Trek properties over the course of his previous deal. And that means 4 new licenses for Viacom CBS to sell to licensees. And that's really what Paramount looks at Star Trek as, or Viacom looks at Star Trek as, is a licensing property. And the more they can license that stuff, the more free money they make and the more profitable that property becomes for them. So the TV shows are kind of like just an excuse to create new licensing deals for the studio. And with Kurtzman, he's got so many ideas for new Star Trek series that I think, they talked about Strange New Worlds, they talked about the Section 31 show, they talked about Star Trek Prodigy, they talked about Starfleet Academy. So that's 4 shows right there that within the next 2 years or so, he could probably get off the ground and up and running. And that's 4 new licenses that Paramount, CBS, Viacom can then start, selling and marketing and stuff like that. So the more content that he produces for Star Trek, whether it's good or not, means that, Paramount now has a new licensing asset that they can continue to make money off forever and ever. Amen. And that was the real appeal for doing this deal with Kurtzman, is because he's already set up at the studio. He's had a deal with CBS, Paramount, Viacom for a long time, going all the way back to Transformers. Hawaii Five-0 was a big earner for them. He's been handling their Star Trek properties to their satisfaction for a couple years now. He's got the infrastructure in place. He's got the teams in place. He's got relationships with the cast and crews. So it just made sense for Viacom to renew his contract, lock him into an overall deal so that he's entirely focused on, his Star Trek properties and maybe a couple other things for their Showtime network. And in doing that, they just basically said like, oh, well, we're going to get all these new licenses that we can sell because this guy can just pump out new Star Trek over and over again. And that was the mentality
about that. Because now Star Trek has actually been, or Discovery, the first season, the whole first season that's never been on broadcast TV before, has been on CBS, the network, where it tanked. Did no one pay attention to that?
Well, so first of all, you have to understand that the first 5 seasons of Discovery were paid for by Netflix in their foreign distribution deal. This was something that was set up under Les Moonves, who was the former president of CBS Studios, the CBS network. And so Star Trek Discovery is free money for Viacom because they didn't have to pay for it necessarily. It was all financed through Netflix.
Which is why Netflix wanted nothing to do with Picard.
Yeah. So when it comes to Discovery, they're for sure getting at least 5 seasons. And that is it doesn't matter how good it does on network television because they used it as a vehicle to get people into their subscription streaming service. And in that respect, it was very successful. So anything that they make on top of that from that point on, whether it be through commercials on broadcast TV or DVD sales or whatever, is just gravy because they didn't pay for any of it. Now, that's a little bit different with Picard because, they did have to shell out money for Picard, but the license strength of a new Picard show was enough for them to make a ton of money selling the license for it before the show premiered and everyone hated it. So you have to understand that these executives aren't stupid. They understand how to squeeze the money out of these golden goose eggs. And even like Lower Decks and stuff like that, those are really popular amongst licensees who create stuff for kids, mostly in the clothing area. So, it's just one of those things where like you have to turn off your consumer brain and turn on your Hollywood studio executive brain and look at this stuff from that perspective to kind of justify what it is, the decisions that they're making, right? So, Discovery is not a property that's lost money. Picard is not a property that's lost money. The whole purpose of Picard was to take those subscribers to CBS All Access who signed up for Discovery and keep them, paying month to month so that they could watch, this highly anticipated series. And so the more Star Trek content they could put out, I think their goal is to have like a new Star Trek thing, like 365, like every.
Yeah, that's what they said like last year or whatever.
Yeah, like they want consistent new Star Trek material coming out in order to keep people subscribed to their Paramount Plus property, and that's really their goal. And so as long as they're able to make more money off of the subscriptions than they're shelling out for the content, it's a net gain for them because they know their metrics. They know how many people sign up when a new Star Trek show is getting ready to premiere. They know how many people they lose after that series is over. And so like as long as the numbers justify the cost of making new Star Trek, they're going to keep doing that. But keep in mind that every new Star Trek thing is also more money from the licensing department, which is what Viacom really looks at as the measure of success for Star Trek series. It's not ratings. It's not the metrics of the streaming stuff. It's the licensing fees, and it's how much they can bring in from licensing, because CBS doesn't have to produce anything for those licenses. They just sell the license, and the risk is put on the licensee. And so it's a win-win for Viacom on that.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Because I think that's one of the big factors in this. And I'm going to welcome one of your partners in crime, Matt. How you doing? Another Matt.
Other Matt.
Here we are.
The barbarian space Vikings.
Yeah, so welcome.
Hey, guys.
So I just want to quickly jump off that point is one of the reasons I feel like this renewal with Kurtzman happened, a big point of it anyway, is this Playmates deal. I don't know how up to speed you are on it or know anything about it, but of course, anybody who knows anything about Star Trek knows that one of their longest running, most lucrative licensing deals was with Playmates for, I think, almost 20 or plus years, doing figures for everything from TNG up through, I think, Enterprise. And they just signed a new deal with Playmates. So I wonder if that has a lot to do with this as well, because as you just said, one of their big things over there at Paramount is licensing, which that's about the only thing they seem to know how to do with Ninja Turtles as well, is just license the shit out of it. They don't know how to actually treat the property. Same problem with Star Trek. And, there's been other people who brought up that same point too, Matt, is that anymore this stuff isn't about making shit that people want. It's just about making content and having tons of it for the streaming services. And I can't remember the producer who said this, but he was an old veteran producer who come out and said, the streaming is just going to destroy movies. And it's going to destroy television. And this is the exact reason why you were just saying, Matt, is because it's all about the amount of content, not the quality.
Yeah, the traditional TV model is based around ad revenue, right? So like you would have seasonal stuff where they would put out stuff for the new TV season, they get their ad revenue, and then in the off season when they're producing new content, they would just do reruns, right? Well, the problem with streaming is that it's not so much like you don't have those seasonal shifts. It's a beast that constantly needs to be fed. And so like you need to constantly be putting out new content 365 a year. And it's very stressful especially for these studios that are still kind of locked in like the traditional mentality, and it's not ad revenue based. So what they've done is they've shortened the seasons. Instead of 21 episodes, it's now like 6 to 10 episodes or whatever. And they're in Disney's case, they've shortened things from like an hour to like a half hour in some cases. And that's like, they're drip feeding it out week to week instead of dropping it all as a binge model. So they're still trying to figure out, how do we make this a sustainable thing that we're not going to be like killing ourselves trying to provide for going forward. And, streaming is the future of TV. Eventually, like, cable is going to go the way of the dodo, and everything's going to be based around streaming services and bundles and stuff like that. It's just going to be a new version of cable, basically. But it's going to be on demand, and it's going to be 365, 24/7. So, we're kind of in the Wild West days of streaming right now, and the studios are still trying to figure out the business model. This whole same day release on streaming versus theater is a great example of that. This is something that studios have been talking about doing for like a long time, and they just never could justify doing it because they didn't want to piss off the theater owners. But with the COOF running rampant out there, theaters are on their back heels, and so like the studios now can like kind of experiment with this without worry of repercussion, because a lot of theaters aren't open. And now they're finally getting the data that they always dreamed about and trying to figure out, is this a profitable way of doing business or not? So it's pretty interesting times.
Yeah, and I think as it plays out, I think it's going to be interesting to see here. But welcome, Matt.
Hey,
what is your feeling on all this business in Star Trek?
The Star Trek stuff, I've kind of just given up on Star Trek. I don't know anybody who actually does anything other than actually hate watch this stuff, so we can talk about it on our YouTube channels.
Good point.
I mean, that's where I was at. They lost me on Discovery long time ago, and then I completely just gave up after the pronoun lecture episode. And then Maddie,
you weren't going to watch season 3, and then eventually you decided,
and then you guilt tripped me, and then I stopped. And then I got to thinking about how I can't talk about stuff unless I actually watch it. So I begrudgingly finished season 3, pouring, poking my eyeballs with ice daggers the whole time. And it was hard to get through. I do not like it.
And you and me, when we first started watching Picard, we were like, okay, the first 3 episodes, we were like, we want to see where it's going. We're giving it some thought. And then when Ichev got his eye pulled out, we were just like, fuck this show.
Yeah, if you guys want to watch Star Trek fans go from really excited to just utter contempt, watch our shows with me and Matt during that season of episodes. Yeah, it's brutal. It's brutal. Yeah. I was thinking about what you were saying about the licenses and everything, and it's fine to have licenses and stuff out there, but who buys this stuff? I don't know anybody who buys this stuff. They're paying this guy millions and millions of dollars to do all this stuff, but who sells this stuff? I don't get it, because I don't know anybody who buys it. I don't buy it. I don't have a single new Star Trek product.
Case in point, Marlin Toys handed back their license. They put out like 2 figures, and they didn't sell as expected. Like they released traditional Shatner and traditional Picard, and they didn't sell well enough. So then they even canceled traditional Spock and forget about anything new. They didn't even try for that. So it's not just new stuff doesn't sell. I think fans have been so burned out that they're not even buying the old stuff. I just know it myself. I used to be a really hardcore Star Trek fan, but this has been so bad that I'm like done with Star Trek. I don't know if I can watch it again knowing what was to happen to it. That's a contrast to He-Man, because Revelations has, if anything, it has strengthened my love for He-Man, ironically, whereas Star Trek, like Kurtzman, has just destroyed it for me.
When they announced that news earlier this week that he got his contract extended and stuff, I was just kind of broke me for a little while. I was like, oh man, this is never going to end. We're subjected to crap for the next, probably forever. So
yeah, what I was thinking was there's that for Emma Watts thinking fixing anything. Granted, he's going to have a brand manager and stuff, but like if he's still the one overall in charge, like nothing is going to change. That instantly means that it's made under this other like second time derived different license. So,
you're also focusing on toy licenses specifically. The licensing.
No, I'm talking about the visuals thing here right now. I'm talking about the visuals and everything.
The licensing ecosystem for Star Trek is so wide and varied. A big portion of it is clothing, and the way that a lot of these things work is the studio will license out to a licensee, like for instance a clothing manufacturer. The clothing manufacturer then sells to big stores like Target, stuff like that, who buy in bulk. And eventually it's the store that is left kind of like holding the bag if they're not able to sell their inventory. So it's profitable along the supply chain up to a certain point. And it's usually at the point of the retailer that things kind of show whether or not, they're selling.
Yeah, so when the consumers actually have to buy it, that's the point where it all goes to hell.
Yeah, and that's what I kept bringing up with Star Wars and why, it was like, Disney saw their money for the merchandising. It was the stores and the toy companies that weren't, and that's why one of the main reasons, besides they kept changing the movie, for the first time ever for a Star Wars movie, for the last movie, they did not have a 3 3/4 inch toy line to go with it because they just wouldn't sell. Plus, they were changing the movie so much. But I know Matt has to leave. But I just wanted to point out one other thing too about this thing is. I think you're onto something, Matt. Is like, yeah, this deal is going to be good for them as far as like the Playmates and all the other stuff that they're getting. But in a few years from now, if this doesn't work out, then that's where I think Star Trek is going to be a prime example, pun intended, where we see that this is how you can destroy what was a once lucrative franchise.
Well, you know what's interesting about Star Trek is that the fan base is so passionate and loyal for it that for 60 years it's kept this franchise alive despite all the mistakes that Viacom has made with it. Like I remember when they cracked down on like fan fiction and stuff like that in the early 90s. That was something that kept Star Trek alive for like a really long time, and they tried to crush that out, and now they're getting rid of like the fan films and like all this other stuff that has traditionally supported the franchise. And so Viacom just looks at Star Trek as unkillable, and to a certain point it is. Like there are hardcore fans out there who will just anything with Star Trek branded onto it, they're going to love and consume without question. So to a certain extent, Star Trek's never going to die, and they can abuse it as much as they want and not have to worry about totally killing it. But I think more and more casual fans are kind of like moving away from Star Trek.
Well, and I think that our groups are kind of proof of that, and they get larger and larger every day. And that's what I'm saying is like, yeah, you can only go so long where you keep doing this same, insane thing over and over again. But sooner or later, there's going to be nobody left.
Yeah,
that's the thing, because that's their whole goal, and they've already said this in no uncertain terms that they want to get rid of the old white men. And once the old white men are gone, then this new fan base will rise up because it will be safe. And it's like, but the thing is you're not gaining any new fans here. We're not seeing this gain that you're talking about. I mean,
it'll be interesting to see next week here at the con in Vegas what the population is like inside there between the old fans and the new fans.
Yeah, well.
But I'm sure there'll be plenty of people running around in Discovery uniforms, but we'll see.
There always are. Anyway, guys, I got to get going.
Yeah, take care, Matt. But what was
fun? Yeah, you're doing this to me again.
You're doing
this to me again. You are a huge jerk. All right.
You should have gotten here earlier, man. Should have gotten here earlier.
You can send the link to Alex. I don't care. But no, that's what I noticed last time, though, too, is considering how many Discovery shirts we saw out there and people who were dressed as certain characters.
Mm-hmm.
The number of people who had not actually watched the show astounded me.
Yeah.
Like there wasn't, but every other person I talked to had not even watched Discovery. They had like no interest in it. So
also the difference is it's the first Star Trek show to be behind a paywall. You have to actually subscribe to watch it. So that's a factor that a lot of people are taking into consideration as well.
Yeah.
But anyway, guys, I got to head out. Thank you so much for having me on. I wish I could stay longer, but I had made plans ahead of time to do stuff. So sorry about that. But
it's all right. We got a replacement, Matt.
Yes. And Vader's way more entertaining than I am.
I'm not, though. I'm not nearly as smart. I have no insights to the industry. I'm just a normal dude who watches TV. So.
That's what makes you entertaining, though. But for everyone who really wants to see my banter with Vader, go check out saltynerdvideo.com. It takes you to our YouTube page, and you can see all of our episodes on there.
Awesome.
Yes,
well, take care of yourself.
The link is, of course, already in the description.
All right.
Bye, guys. Have a few more things to get into, so don't go anywhere.
Good.
Yeah. Did we have a couple more super chats to catch up on?
Let's see. Let's check real quickly. I do believe there was a couple, so I'm just going to refresh. I'm going to go through those now, and then we move straight into the next topic. Xenobit wondered George who? Yeah, and I wonder that too. George who? And William Sova says for $10, hey, Andre, Tom, and Kadish. And right now, Matt, if you like Exo Squad, may I suggest getting into Battletech, since Exo was created as a FU because of a long-standing feud between Harmony Gold and the Battletech creators. Oh, thanks for that suggestion. Personally, I'm not familiar with either Exo Squad or BattleTech, but thanks for the suggestion. And also, this says Playmate also got in trouble years ago over Exo Squad and Robotech toys. So,
the toy
good
industry
times.
can be kind of shady. That's the funny bit.
You have lots of nasty people in the toy industry, from what I figure.
Yeah, and that's where we've been running into some brick walls with our licensing thing, but and some people have every right to go out and say, like, yeah, I don't see why they would do this, but it's like, oh, I can see why they would do this. There's reasons.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, and especially with this whole Masters of the Universe thing, it's so convoluted that the deeper we try to get into it, the less answers we get. That's when we start saying, okay, somebody's hiding or covering up something, or they don't want something known. And hey, sooner or later, hopefully we'll get in touch with the right person. We are talking to people now, though. We're trying to do our best to get to the bottom of it. But as Andre said, when you have something that happened back in the 90s, pre-internet, like at least in the sense of like it is now, it is very difficult to find any kind of paperwork like that. And when you're talking like legal documents, it's even worse.
Did you guys say you're making Midnight's Edge toys?
No, I wish. No, we're talking about the whole Mattel.
Oh, because I could have sworn I thought you said you were trying to figure out how to get a line of toys made for the show.
We're trying to get a line on the whole toy license.
Oh, okay. Because I would buy that. I would buy some Andre and Tom toys and make them do despicable things and probably post pictures on YouTube. So yeah, that would be super fun.
Good times. Yes, and then moving on with the super chats.
Yes.
Mike Beats Dix. Nice name right there. Says, but what are the numbers and what is getting added to the platform at the same time Star Trek re-releases? Also, great He-Man video this morning. Oh, thank you. The numbers are a carefully guarded secret, but as we reported, when you have someone else footing the bill and you have contracts forcing them to do it, then you're kind of screwed and the numbers don't really matter. It's like a con they can keep up until the contract is due for renewal. Mr. Tickletrunk says, hey guys, how about that Orville show though? Yeah, let's hope season 3 is up there with season 1 and 2. Let's hope.
They just finished filming, I think, not too long ago.
Yeah.
Just now? I feel like they should have had that done 2 years ago.
Well, they got stuck in the middle of everything. Like, I think they had like either like midway through or 2/3 of the way through when everything got shut down.
Yeah.
And I believe they just finished up here like a week or two ago. So yeah, like literally just like within a matter of weeks. But and other sad news, real quick. J.W. Rinsler did pass away. If you haven't seen it already. Sadly, we got that news. So sorry to hear that, and our condolences go out to his family and friends and fans, of course. So,
of course, yeah,
that's too bad.
Yeah,
it absolutely is.
Moving on, though, we have
moving on. However insensitive that may be, we also have EVA Unit 4A, who says for $5, I bought 2 Eagle Moss ships from Star Trek Discovery for $125. That's all they'll ever get from me. They don't want me. I don't want them. So I'm
surprised you gave them that.
That's $125 more than I'd give them.
Yeah. Which is funny, yeah.
But here's like the thing. At the time, I'm sure that at the time you didn't know they didn't want you, so it's fine, and you got some hopefully fairly decent things. Like those were made for print, or like almost made per order. So yeah, hopefully they're good.
Well, and here's the thing, Matt. Everything he said was right, and I mean I was pushing him a little bit, but I was being you guys, the audience. I already knew the answers. I know why they're doing this, and because I get the same questions from you guys all the time. The licensing is a big deal, not just toys, but everything. But that's the thing is, we kept trying to point out is where is the licensing deals? There hasn't been any major ones for the past 5 years, and there's been some minor ones, yes. But this Playmates deal is the first big one they got, and there's a Playmobil deal as well now. So there's a few toy lines and stuff that are coming in. Why and where the interest came from, I don't know. My guess is Nickelodeon. I'm thinking Nick's got some lines with people, and especially Playmates being, I'm sure they have a really good relationship over Ninja Turtles and other things like that. So, and considering, you know, Star Trek is still probably a lucrative enough franchise, I'm sure, you know, but I have a feeling that Playmates is going to learn the hard way, the way that Kenner did, and who's it, Hasbro or whoever was doing Star Wars.
Don't know. I just don't know anybody who buys anything new Star Trek. I really don't.
And that was what I was going to get to. My point was
it's weird.
I went to a lot of geek stores prior to like things shutting down, and I never saw anything Star Trek. And if I did, in the rare occasion, it was always classic Trek.
Right.
Never 2009 Trek or never Discovery or Picard.
Yeah, it's like going to Target and seeing the only stuff it sells is original Star Trek or Star Wars toys, and all the new Star Wars stuff is sitting on the shelves in the discount bin. So, yeah.
Is it Mattel now for Star Wars? I don't know. They keep moving it around. So. Yeah. For those who are correcting me in the chat, thank you. But yeah, I don't even know anymore. But like the sections that I've seen in the stores for Star Wars have gotten so tiny. It's kind of comical.
I miss the days of the walls of Star Wars, right? Just the entire row is nothing but Star Wars.
You know, that's actually funny. I was for completely unrelated purposes in this toy store here in Norway yesterday, and just for fun, I checked. And almost the only thing that I could find in the Star Wars section, it was like some Darth Vader and stuff like that. And then there were a couple of things on clearance. And that was that chick from Rogue One. It was like 2 toys of her that were like sold for
Jitter, so.
Yeah, exactly. For 50 Norwegian krona. That's like a quarter of the price of everything.
I was going to say, yeah, that's like when we get them in the super chats, they're the blue.
And that had obviously been collecting dust on shelves there for a long time.
Well, see the stuff,
but the Ghostbuster stuff by Lego and stuff, that was on prominent display.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, there's been some Ghostbuster stuff that's been pretty decent. See where I'm at, the one store, I think that they've got an employee who digs into the fucking Star Wars shit before it goes out, because they never have crap, and the crap they do have is the stuff that nobody wants. And because I could never find it, I've never seen a cartoon, I've never seen, any specific certain characters I've looked for. I've gotten lucky and gone to other stores and picked up a few things, but I've never come across one there. I swear they got this little itty bitty Star Wars section, and it only just has crap. He-Man's prominent. Like I just sent Andre, I couldn't believe it. I sent Andre, they had a center thing for He-Man, and they're still selling the Revelations figures. So, I mean, but we may get into that subject here too. But you were going to say something, Matt. Sorry.
Those silly employees taking out all the good stuff before they put them on the shelf.
I think they do. I'm not.
I know they do, because I ran into that. You see all that garbage plastic on the wall behind me back there. I caught the Funko bug like 7-8 years ago now. And I went through and I was trying to buy all the classic Star Wars stuff, which I did. I got most of the normal stuff, but as stuff was coming out, I found out that the hot topics around here, the employees were sniping all the exclusives and all the good stuff and keeping them behind the counter, and then they were just going to take them home. They were buying it themselves and then put them on eBay.
Them on eBay,
yeah. And I called them out, and it turned into like a little bit of a thing. And I ended up getting some decent stuff from the store manager, because I told him I was going to Yelp the holy living hell out of them and cause a big stink. But yeah, it's a thing. The store employees, absolutely, they're not dumb. They know what's going on.
Oh, absolutely. But anyway, moving on with super chats, because I know we have a few, Andre.
Yes, indeed. Next one is from ActionCom, who wonders, where does the audience fit in this post-audience world? How do studios see the audience? Well, evidently, a big section of it they see as problematic and in need of being removed.
They do indeed. And I wonder, speaking of Motu, if that's going to be one of the first places they see some of this, because there's been people noticing and writing stories about the fact that it fell out of the top 10 already. Which is pretty quick for a Netflix show, I guess. I don't really pay attention to that, but a lot of people brought it up to me, and I think Quartering did a video on it, and there's a few articles written about it. So again, what they're noticing is that's no rewatchability, and that matters in certain aspects. But at the same time, I'm willing to believe what Kevin Smith said about Netflix. I don't think he was lying when he said that he called them and they're like, we're not worried about a few pissed off fans. We're doing great.
I don't.
People, even if they're hate watching it,
Yeah.
they're still watching it.
Exactly. I don't think Netflix is worried about upsetting people.
I think they should be more worried about the second half.
I mean, they still have cuties and stuff out there, right? So I mean, they don't.
Yes, they do. And I don't know if you want to touch on the Motu topic I shared in the private chat, Andre, but yeah, no.
We'll see how much time we have here.
Yeah, no, I feel like they're going to feel the real sting when the second half drops.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll see. And then moving on, we had Cenobit, who still says, I didn't catch that. George who? Yeah, I didn't catch that either.
Don't know who Matt was just referring to there, unless he meant George Lucas.
Yeah, maybe it must have been. I don't know any other.
If he's talking about toys, that's probably who he meant.
Yeah, probably. And Troy Pacelli says for €5, Ferengi Rule of Acquisition 109. Dignity and an empty sack is worth the sack. Star Trek fandom without the fans is an empty sack. Yeah, that's actually the Ferengi have some really, really good sayings. I think I have to go and look them all up because they're probably good rules to live by. Honestly, I wish the studios would live more by the Ferengi rules of acquisition, because they would have to make product that people actually want purely by accident.
Xenobit sent in a $5 super chat. You didn't have to do that. You could have just added me at this. He probably meant George Cheeks if we were talking about Star Trek, though. Yeah, George Cheeks is the head of CBS, isn't he?
I don't recall right now.
Creative at CBS, anyway, something like that. Anyway, he's a guy that Kurtzman was kissing his cheeks and Cheeks was kissing Kurtzman's cheeks. It was quite a love fest in that Variety article.
Oh yeah, good going with that. And then we have Cenobit, who also said, have you looked into the McDonald's ice cream machine scandal?
I have. In fact,
while off topic, it's a good note in how things can get covered up and manipulated. This is completely new to me. Tom, what is the McDonald's ice cream machine scandal?
I got so pissed
and
off.
How the hell do you create the scandal of a McDonald's ice cream machine? That's like the bigger question.
Yeah, this is all new to me.
This is where my instincts and my whatever, like from Midnight's Edge, paid off in my real life. Because I got so pissed off that every fucking time I would go to McDonald's and I wanted to shake, their shake machine was down.
I suddenly felt like McDonald's milkshake myself. Now when you mention
I know they're awesome, but anyhow, one day I happened to I'm like, this pissed me off, but whatever. It didn't really occur to me like it could be a common thing until one day I stumbled upon this article where this guy had the same problem, and then I went down this rabbit hole and found out that. And I guess one gentleman did a whole video. I can't remember his name. I wish I remember. Somebody in the chat might. That basically broke the whole thing down. But what it is this company that furnishes McDonald's with their shake machines is the only company that can service the machines. Okay. And for some reason, out of everything that gets sold through McDonald's, like they have like an option of like 2 or 3 different things when it comes to fryers and all these other things in their store. But for some reason, they're only allowed to use this one shake machine. Now, the person didn't go back far enough. I think this has to do with Ray Kroc, because that's where Ray Kroc got involved with McDonald's in the first place. But fast forward, you're only allowed to have the maintenance guys from this company come in. But as bringing up Ray Kroc, all these McDonald's are they're franchises, right? So they're not technically owned by McDonald's. They are, but they're, it's a convoluted thing. So when the serviceman has to come in to service the machine, it's the franchisee who's paying for it, not McDonald's. So basically, it's this big scam with McDonald's and the shake machines, to where these machines constantly go down, and the only ones who can work on them and fix them is the company that made them. And there was somebody who actually went and made an app to help fix these machines. And McDonald's said if they were caught using them, it was a big whole fucking
man.
thing. But what it
That's
boils
wild.
down to is, and this is how people have learned how to fix it, is all it is you got to underfill the hopper, because what's happening is the machine is trying to clean out. When it heats up, the milk expands and it overfills, and it's like this thing that takes 4 hours to do. So it's stuck in this constant recycle process. And it's a stupid little thing. So all you got to do is tell your local McDonald's, don't overfill the hopper. Just underfill it every time, and you should be fine. That's the trick. But it's just this convoluted mess like that we constantly uncover, Andre, where somebody's covering something up because somebody's making money off of it. That's why. Or somebody could lose money.
Yeah, that also sounds like some unions here in Norway. Whereas, like, yeah,
that's the short version, mind you.
Yeah.
Somebody went through a lot of trouble to figure all this shit out. They actually got all the manuals and talked to people. It was a whole thing. It was really
that's
cool,
pretty
actually.
crazy.
Yeah. Like, for instance, because you have like some unions here. Like, for instance, if there's like if there's an elevator or something to be printed or something like that, you have like real strong union protection. So all you really have to do to get things working is push that button right here that says push in case of problem, and it solves everything. However, because of union rules, you have to call in someone who's working with that union to push that button, although anyone can do it.
We run into that kind of stuff at work all the time. It's like we can't take the garbage out because that's the job of the people that come clean the garbage, and they're a union. And if you touch that garbage can without them doing it first, then you're going to get in trouble. We can't change a light bulb in our office either. That kind of stuff. It's goofy. It's absolutely goofy. So I hear you. I understand it.
No,
I don't understand it. It's dumb, but I get where it's coming
ironic
from.
that they made that connection, because that's the kind of way we do our investigations in a weird way, and that's sometimes why they take so long. Because once you start uncovering things, you get a hell of a lot more questions than you started with, and that's kind of what we've had happen here with Motu. So please be patient, folks.
Yeah, exactly. So it's coming fairly soon, but yeah. And then getting back to the super chats. Oki Bendogi says, Tom, Andre, Tickle Trunk, Funko Pops, or Bubbleheads? Take my money. Oh, yeah. So Funko Pops or Bubbleheads of us? Yeah, well.
That would be nice.
That would be fun, I guess. So, yeah. And I'm just going to refresh here to see what else we have. Tom, you have to say the name.
The one, the only, Rod Thunderheart.
And he says, Hail Andre, hail Tom, hail Salty Nerd. Loved your new video this morning. Great work. Oh, thank you. For those that haven't seen, we have a new He-Man video that is something of a tease of the rights video that we're working on. So go check that out in the meantime. An EVA unit for 4A qualifies. Ships I got was STD Enterprise. Great upgrade to TOS version. And Kerala, evolved NX-01 in his opinion. But solely on appearance, not watching the shows. Oh, it's okay then. Oh, don't worry about it. You know what? As long as it makes you happy, you don't have to justify it to anyone, no matter why. And if you like the show, and or if you saw the show and you liked it, I'm not saying you did, not accusing you of that, but if that were the case, more power to you.
Well, it's not like we've not run into people who do. We've ran into people who do like the shows, and it's not like we try to make them stop.
Incredibly rarely, but it's been known to happen.
That's kind of the point we're making, though, is that when you talk to 20 fans, and maybe one out of that 20 fans is an actual fan of the show, and the rest say the same thing, you kind of have a good idea of what the fan pool is like. Another great example is my cousin, who I thought was a Trek fan he is a Trek fan, and he actually had CBS All Access, but unbeknownst to him, there was even a new Star Trek show. But when I told him about it, he just sounded disinterested, but then he brought up the Orville out of nowhere. So I think a lot of classic fans have turned to the Orville.
Yeah, well, they have to, because there's no, that's the only source of classic Trek today, isn't it? Then Tsukiyomi99 says, if companies love Kurtzman due to making money off of Star Trek licenses, who can they sell it to if Kurtzman keeps devaluing the brand?
Well, that's kind of what I was bringing up to Matt. But
Yeah.
Yeah, that's their problem to figure out. And then Xenobit also says, employees were also doing that crap with amiibos.
The keeping them out of the general, keeping them off the shelves, buying them themselves. Yeah, I get it.
Yep.
Yeah. And Revkor says, depends on the time you come. My McDonald's that I work at, the ice cream machines work. It just needs cleaning once a day. That's it. So I call BS.
Well, that's what it is. It's kind of that's the thing, is it's something they've made more difficult than it has to be. And that's where, like, my version of it is the short version. And that's the trick, is if as long as you don't overfill the hopper, you won't have the problem. It's because when it runs its cleaning process, it sends it into this 4-hour like fucking roundabout thing that just keeps happening over and over and over, and you can't stop it. It's stupid. But anyhow.
Yeah. And the final one that you have to read who's from.
The one, the only, the magnificent Rod Thunderheart.
And he says, Hail Midnight's Edge. Somebody needs to do a movie on the milkshake machines. I remember way back when. That was a big story in the 80s. This def sounds interesting.
Yeah. Well, like I said, there's plenty of stuff out there to check it out. Just type it into YouTube and you'll probably find the main video I was talking about.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And EVA Unit 48 also says, hashtag Trekkers for the Orville.
Right.
Yeah, and if I may suggest, hashtag Trekkers against Trek. Stephen Alton also says, Hail Andre, Tom, Matt, and Matt, Wrenches and Chat. What is the status of the G.I. Joe Transformers Mask crossover film series? That's a very good question. Matt, let's give it to you first. In the aftermath of the Snake Eyes movie kind of bombing, what do you think is the status of the shared Hasbro cinematic universe?
I didn't know there was a shared Hasbro universe with Transformers, the Mask, and G.I. Joe. That would be fascinating, but
Friday the 13th, you forgot about that.
Oh, Friday the 13th?
Okay, and Friday the 13th. Well, of course, that already happened.
Judging by the way Hollywood, keeps making terrible things, I'm sure it's going to happen at some point. Just keep making bad movies and they'll just keep giving us what they think we want. So, yeah. Might as well. Let's do it.
I think it's still in line. I think that's why, what is his name? D. Bonaventura or whatever is getting his way and moving things back to the Bayverse.
But I do believe that what happened recently is that the next Transformers movie was put a little bit back to the drawing board as a direct result of G.I. Joe flopping. I do recall we heard something along those lines.
I didn't hear that. That's news to me, actually.
That it may have delayed things a little bit because that flopping wasn't part of the plan. See what we can find here. But I do believe that Snake Eyes flopping was not what they anticipated would happen.
Well, while you're looking for that, for those who may not be aware of the Friday the 13th Transformers connection, there's the character who plays the dickhead boyfriend of Megan Fox in the first Transformers film is the same character in Friday the 13th who gets killed in the bed or whatever.
Before Shia LaBeouf.
Yes.
Her boyfriend before him. Okay.
Yep. Same actor playing the same character in both films.
Really?
Yep.
This is all new to me, man. I had no clue.
So basically what happens to Megan Fox's boyfriend after Transformers is he gets killed by Jason.
Come on.
I shit you not. It's the Bayverse.
Yeah, no, he's not joking, and you can see the movie for yourself. It's the exact same character,
same name,
and it's even been confirmed. And the connection is actually Michael Bay, because those movies, the Transformers movies, were made by Platinum Dunes. And you know what? Platinum Dunes, Michael Bay's production company, they were also the ones that did the Friday the 13th remake. And so, since Trent, Megan Fox's boyfriend, was not a Transformers character, but an original Platinum Dunes character that appeared in a Transformers movie, but that was owned by Platinum Dunes, they could reuse him. So that way you have like a tangential thing, which means that if you just follow the line of characters, the Friday the 13th remake takes place in the Transformers universe.
They were both produced by Paramount anyway.
That's wild. That's just wild. Okay.
Yeah, it's just a little stupid thing. But it's kind of funny.
But and this actually comes from.
Weird. It's kind of like a Kevin Smith connection almost with all his kids.
Yeah, kind of like that. But because the next Transformers movie was going to be, or still is, Transformers Rise of the Beasts, where they have like those animals Transformers or some crap like that, because Bonaventura, he didn't like Bumblebee, not really, because that was a movie that suddenly emphasized story and not just brainless action where you can't see what happens on screen. And Bonaventura, he likes brainless action that you can't see on screen. And one of the 10 fans of Michael Bay, they complained to him that there wasn't enough action in Bumblebee, which is a wonderful, wonderful movie. And Bonaventura, he took that very seriously. And then when Bumblebee kind of didn't perform as they had hoped, which obviously wasn't a result of Bumblebee, that was a result of the Michael Bay movies that came before it.
Right.
Then he took that as an excuse to, we're not going to continue down the path of Bumblebee, even though that is what all critics and everyone who saw the movie said this is the way forward. Instead, they're going to go back to the Bayverse, more or less, and they're going to do that with Transformers Rise of the Beast. But that has been delayed by 6 months. It was originally supposed to be released in June of 2022. But now it's been pushed back to Christmas of 2022, which means that because it was practically ready to go, which means that they have now slammed the brakes so much that they know they're not going to hit their original release date. They have given themselves time that if they were to recommence in a couple of months, they can still make Christmas 2022. But then again, they could also decide that, screw it, we have to really rethink this thing. So I think that the shared Hasbro universe with Transformers, Mask, everything like that, either it's not going to happen or it's going to be pushed back by years. I think they're going to wait to see how the next Transformers movie fares. But I think it suddenly got delayed by at least 2 years. At least, if it happens at all. My thoughts on it. Probably not.
I didn't care for any of the GI. Like, I had a lot of people, and I understand people like really into GI Joe and telling me all kinds of stuff about Snake Eyes and stuff, but it's like I just don't care. Those movies turn me off, and
it's just another one of those properties that you wonder, you scratch your head about why they can't make good movies with these things. I mean, I wouldn't think it would be that hard.
Well, and that's a great example of what we were just talking about, as far as how it's like, how can you take something that clearly has, a fan base and you can make interesting, but then turn it into what we got out of the G.I. Joe films and Snake Eyes so far. And I haven't seen it, but I had no interest after seeing the trailer. To me, it looked like a straight to video, crappy, like it looked worse than a lot of those straight to video animated films.
I get frustrated because I think we all know people who could easily make good scripts for these properties that we all love and grew up with. Kadish could probably come up with some good stuff. Script Doctor could come up with some stuff, and there's plenty of other people just in our little YouTube world that are more than capable of doing that stuff. So why they have such absolute garbage coming out of the studios these days with these properties is beyond me. I don't get it. I really don't.
I think the bottom line, going back to Kurtzman and all this stuff, is they're politicians more so than they are creatives.
Yeah.
I think Red Line 7 is right here. They don't have any creativity. They don't know what it is to create. And that's why, besides just the ease of using them for a platform to sell politics with, it's easier to pick up where somebody else started something than it is to create something new and have it flourish on its own. It's just sad that there's hardly any new things out there anymore. Like John Wick is one of the last original things I can remember that became a franchise. And that's few and far between.
Yeah, we find ourselves talking about we're searching for new properties to try to fall in love with. Like this week on the podcast, we talked about that Netflix movie, Space Sweepers. We all had a great time with that movie. I watched it months ago and I kept bugging the guys. I go, let's watch this movie. Let me know what you think. And I thought they were going to hate it, but Matt and Jude and Danny, they all really liked it. I mean, we gave it 4 stars across the board on our podcast coming up. That'll be released here in like next week. But that's just an example of something that they still can make good movies, but you got to go to Korea to get it made, I guess, or something. So I don't know what's going on.
Our buddy Chris Gore always points out you got to check independence out, and that's kind of the case too.
Yeah.
But at the same time, and I love independent features, don't get me wrong, but I want my good old classic like sci-fi or my sword and sorcery and all this kind of stuff. And I know a lot of people were looking forward to the Green Knight, and that one come out this last weekend was a big disappointment.
Yeah, that looks weird. I haven't seen it yet, but it looks weird.
I heard it was long and boring. And the trailer's kind of misleading. Same thing with Pig. I heard the film was good, but I've heard the trailer's very misleading. Speaking of John Wick, because the trailer makes it look like John Wick, and it's actually this.
I know, right?
Dramatic film about loss and all this shit. So
I watched that trailer, and my friends were all like, "Oh man, it's going to be an awesome John Wick." Nicolas Cage is going to go crazy and kill everybody that stole this pig, and I that never fooled me from the start. And I haven't seen it yet, but I didn't think it was going to be some kind of crazy pig vengeance movie. I figured
the trailer does a pretty good job of selling it, but I can see where it's coming from. Where for somebody who knows film enough and has seen enough trailers,
I'm like,
you gotta start picking that shit apart.
I think they're messing with us a little bit there. Yeah.
But yeah, like I'm not saying the movie was bad, because War Monkey, as I've heard, the movie's good. It's just the trailer's misselling it. That's what I've heard.
Yeah, because we were all instantly when we did a reaction to that trailer, we were all, oh man, this is Nicolas Cage's Wick movie with the pet pig. And I don't think that's what it was. So yeah,
no. But anyhow, Andre, do we have a few more super chats besides this one from this side, who says John Larroquette is rebooting Night Court. Yeah, that's something we learned a while back, and it's going to have I think that one girl from Big Bang Theory is going to be in it too. And
is it a continuation or
it is? But it's good. I think there's only going to be like 1 or 2 people from the original show in it.
I mean, most of them are dead, right?
Yeah, that's the other problem. Yeah, sadly. It's John Larroquette, and I think that's the only person so far who's been announced to be a part.
Is this going to be on network or stream?
Probably Peacock.
Okay.
I'd imagine.
I haven't bothered to dive into the Peacock network yet. I have it, but I just haven't had the time to see what's on there. So,
I mean, it's not like Night Court is one of those. I don't think it's Kaylee. I think it's the other one. It could have been Kaylee, though. I could have been wrong. But anyhow, I don't know. I love the classic show. No,
or no, not Punky. No, that wasn't.
But you're thinking of Blossom. No.
Yeah. The little blonde trick. The little blonde.
No, it's the other one. Yeah, I think it's her, and I can't think of her.
Wallowitz's wife.
Yeah, the one who does the voice of Harley Quinn in that one. Yeah.
Oh, Kaylee Cuoco does Harley Quinn.
Is it? No, they both have done her though. The one who
they both have in different things.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
I forgot that she did it now too. You're right.
Well, we did have a couple of other.
The only other chick on the show, we can't think of her name. Melissa Rausch. That's the one.
Yeah, that's that one.
Yeah. Mr. Tickle Trunk says, watch the Orville. Ancinobit says, have you heard of the YouTube cinematic universe? So many freaking crossovers, I can't keep up with it at all. Yeah, I think we'll live in it. So
does that make Az like the Hulk?
I guess.
He would.
I guess.
Would that make me like the Thing, though?
And with that, we are fully caught up.
Awesome.
All right.
Now I didn't know if you wanted to dive into that other story, but otherwise, we could talk a little He-Man and check out.
Yeah, I don't know. What
was the other story you had?
Well, I don't have one another story, so yeah, we might as well.
Well, I
Yeah,
didn't know
thinking
it was
to
a bit
bring
of a
it up.
touchy subject on this one.
Well, we just have to be touchy in how we handle it. So yeah.
I don't know if I don't know if I know how to be touchy about something.
Well, you don't want to
Okay,
get too touchy.
I'll put it another way. Don't be touchy and be
Well,
delicate. And remember, we have a
Let's
pretty
just say
pretty aggressive algorithm here.
Andre wouldn't let me talk about Gonzo, so let's talk about Sarah Michelle Gellar and gaying up Masters of the Universe Revelation. As He-Man fanboys drown in tears.
Oh man.
So basically, this is from Autostraddle. So basically, it's a blog, from what I gather, more or less. It's like a place where like people randomly.
Yeah, but I also guess like I think her boyfriend got permission from her other boyfriend to talk about it or something like that on Twitter. So I guess he said something, and yeah.
What are you guys doing to me here?
This has been like going around. It's just there's just
Are
more.
we going to talk about hairstyles?
Well, it looks like it, but anyway, the gist of this editorial is basically that the writer says that the original He-Man was horrible because it was racist and misogynist, and I wonder how the hell she arrived at those conclusions.
I want to send this to Erica Scheimer.
Yeah, just to see how she reacts to it.
I think we need a lady's point of view.
Yeah, well, be that as it may, the gist of it basically is then that this new series, everyone has been made gay, and the men have been put aside, and the fans, the traditional fans that this series supposedly was supposed to have been made for, are crying salty tears because they lost one of their properties. And that is amazing and awesome and highly commendable. And keep it up.
And goes right into what we keep saying. This is what they believe.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, this wouldn't even piss me off so much, especially the He-Man thing really pisses me off more than anything. Not just because it's Kevin Smith, but because they presented this as something for the original fans. You know, we've been told so many times, it's not made for you. It's not made for you.
And here we were told it is made for you. And then we are told, but you know what was
really made for you.
The original thing? That was such a horrible, problematic thing that we had to change it to make it up with the times. But it's still made for you, except it totally isn't.
It's made to teach you how to be better.
Yeah. And here's like the thing, that the original, they're rewriting history. And they're trying to claim the original was something it wasn't.
Right.
And they're refuting that it was what it was, namely something truly progressive.
I sent you an article yesterday that I found very interesting. It was about the history of Filmation He-Man. There was nothing really groundbreaking in the article itself, right, that we didn't already know. But what it does have, and I brought up Erica Scheimer for a reason, there's a section in there where she goes into how diverse the original He-Man was and how her and her mother played a huge fucking role on not just Masters of the Universe, but She-Ra. And again, she did go on to commend the new She-Ra show for its depiction of the LGBTQ community, which, whatever. Like I said, that show was not made for us. And they never.
No, exactly. That's why we never, like, that really clearly wasn't made for us.
And so that's why I never really went after that show, right? Like I never attacked it. I never really went I didn't. I know you can go back and look at any of our videos, even Midnight's Edge. I don't think we only mentioned it in only right.
The only times we ever mentioned this is that this is a series that clearly wasn't made for us.
Yeah, and we talked about the rights.
So, yeah, that's pretty
kind of
much
when
it.
we first got tipped off about the rights issue.
Yeah.
Right. So, like, again, I had no issue with that. Same thing with like certain other cartoons that have been technically not made for me. Like when I watched the first episode of Rise of TMNT, we reviewed it, and after that, I was like, it's obviously not made for me. Okay, move on. This, though, as we were saying, has been not only just made for us, but was made to us, appeal to us in every which way, shape, and form until it was obvious that it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the part that bothers me. It was the bait and switch. It's the lies. It's the deceit. And then this kind of crap coming at us, even when the other side is trying to say, oh, no, that's not the case. You know, because even Kevin has tried to play down the whole, shipping thing between Andra and Tila. But It's clearly out there, right? Like this is the narrative that they're
I don't-
pushing.
It was definitely implied on the show, that's for sure. I mean,
I don't care, to be honest
but
with you. But
yeah, really,
it goes
I don't
against the character. That's why I
Right.
care. Create 2 new
Right.
characters, which Andra was initially
Mhm.
a new character, which I don't have any attachment to the old character, so I don't really care about that part. That's not my problem. But the problem is, why change Tila so much? Why not give Andra a whole nother character to have a relationship with? I wouldn't care. I wouldn't care at all, to be honest with you. And I think that's the biggest misconception I think people have, is it's not that we care. Because, okay, here's another great example. There's a bunch of people who are freaking out about the new Chucky series because it has it alludes to a gay relationship in the series. I'm not so worried about it because it's 2 new characters. Don Mancini, who created Child's Play, has been openly gay since I can remember. So if anybody who probably can handle this with some style and humor, it's him. Go watch Seed of Chucky. It's basically a John Waters movie, right? So I get a lot of people don't get it or like it, but I have a feeling he's going to be able to handle this with some humor, and it's not going to be all overly woke. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. When I watch it, I'll review it. I'll be honest. But I'm going to give it a chance because I trust Don. See, that's the thing. He's never had a problem with that kind of stuff, and he's already kind of interweaved it into the Child's Play universe. You can do something new and different, and I don't care, and we don't care for the most part. Create a new thing, create a new character, but just don't make it that thing when you're going to call it Masters of the Universe or He-Man, or imply that it's a He-Man show and then kill him in the first episode.
As Xenobit points out, it was made for you. It was made to piss you off.
Exactly. You're right. You're 110% right. And Kevin played right into their fucking hand.
He did.
Yeah.
He did.
And I'm not giving him an out here. I'm just saying I don't know if he was completely aware of what he's doing.
Yeah. Mr. Tickletrunk says, didn't Tila have the hots for He-Man, but not Adam? Yeah, well, that was before.
Yeah.
It's not so much anymore now, evidently.
Yeah. I like this. Roger Ebert once described Seed of Chucky as a movie to see on television, free television. Here's the thing. But Chucky, people trusted Kevin Smith too. Yeah. Again, I reiterate, go see Seed of Chucky thinking of it as it's a John Waters movie, and you'll see it in a whole new way. Trust me on that one. And it helps that he's in the movie.
I'm sure they'll make me watch these Chucky movies for the podcast here at some point. We watch
if they do, get me involved.
We watch a lot of really bad movies here lately.
I'm the only one I know who ever sticks up for Seed of Chucky.
I'll make sure to mention it for sure.
I'm not saying it's a good movie.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on though with the He-Man thing. So yeah, I mean, I think you guys are hitting it on the button. They're doing this just to piss us off. And I've said this too about some of the other Star Wars and Star Trek stuff lately, is they make things like the High Republic and Geode. So we talk about it. Why? Because nobody else is.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the sad part about this. Did they really need to do this to He-Man to make it famous again? Because all you're really doing is proving that people just wanted the classic stuff. I mean, it's sad to me. I mean, the toys are selling to a point.
Yeah, I seem to remember that all the toys are still out for sale, right? I mean, people still
but
still
you
buy that
realize
stuff. So.
How many people have messaged me and said, "Oh, I like the toys, but I don't like the show."
I mean, let's be real here. The cartoon back in the 80s was just a half-hour long toy commercial, like all the 80s.
Well, see, that's the thing, is a lot of people say that, but I think that's where the misconception comes in.
I mean, that's how I always felt about him, and that was, I was a little bit too old.
See, but then the same thing can be said about G.I. Joe and Transformers.
Absolutely,
and everything else that came out after that. And even though TMNT had a comic book, it was really pushed to the public eye by the toy. That was what first got people to notice it. So, I mean, to me, I feel like that's the biggest problem with this whole thing, is people see it as, oh, it's just a commercial, so it's not that important. I said, no. You got to stop and realize that this is no different than Star Wars, no different than Star Trek, no different than Doctor Who, or any of the other franchises that people like, because this meant something to us. And I get it. There's a large portion of this community that's a little older, and even people like Robert Meyer Burnett, who I respect and love dearly, but I feel like he suffers from the same issue with seeing it as just a commercial.
How old is he?
He's a 50, 51, somewhere in there. I
Because
think.
I'm 51, so I
Yeah.
totally
And Kevin
relate.
Smith is the same. He
He's
just
the same
turned
age.
51.
Yeah, yeah.
So here you go. And I think that's the biggest misconception that I think that a lot of people aren't seeing is he just did this because he didn't see it as anything important like Star Wars or Batman or anything like that he holds dear. And I think that's where people are misunderstanding what this project could have been and what He-Man meant to people. And the people for some reason have this fuzzy memory of what the show is. And I've been revisiting it quite a bit lately, and I've seen it over the years and I know it pretty well. So like to me, it's like, do you guys remember the same show I do? Because it's a completely different show than what
probably not
presenting. Yeah, I mean, it's every character has something to do. Tila is never second fiddle, right? She is always proactive and or saving the day, or helping He-Man for that matter. She's got plenty of stories on her own. All the other characters play major roles in a sense, and they never sideline any of the women characters. There's even been times where they, especially She-Ra, where it really elevates to the point where it's like pro-feminist type stuff. And I'm not talking about new school feminism. I'm talking about classic feminism more so. But I mean, again, like I even remind people how actually She-Ra is a much more complicated character than He-Man is in a lot of ways. But that's a whole nother discussion. But Andre, I know you're a big fan too. So I know you see it the same way I do. And I think that you probably agree with me that I think that's the biggest misconception with the franchise as a whole.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's like that's what gets to me. It's the rewriting of history.
It is. And
it's how they have to try to push this up as something super progressive by portraying that the old one as some backwaters thing that it absolutely wasn't.
I'm gonna have to start hanging out with the old guys again.
So yeah, but what and also as someone brought up in the chat here that it's been falling off top 10s left and right everywhere. Netflix is all over the world. Like it's really not getting the kind of repeat views that one would have hoped.
Yeah. Yeah, as Chris Neville points out here, here's the thing with Adora. She's a brainwashed soldier for Hordak for quite a long time. Yeah. I mean, She-Ra has a lot in common with Moses, actually. It's kind of a very, like, it's a great story. Like, that's the thing is She-Ra, and that's why I always said if they do a true He-Man movie, you got to combine them. At some point, the stories got to come together. But until
right now, the rights are standing dead in the way of that because they have been separated into two completely legally separate properties. So get this, everyone. He-Man and She-Ra are no longer siblings. They no longer take place in the same universe. Never again shall the two meet. At least that's how it is right now. Once they are back under this, if the rights holder decide to combine the two, but as it is right now in this moment, they are completely legally separate properties, like Marvel and DC.
Yeah,
that's pretty well.
Yeah, we'll get into that's what the whole video is kind of about. It's so fucking convoluted. And we don't know who or why or what people don't want out there, but we're going to get to the bottom of it. So
it feels like that's kind of the deal with all of our entertainment these days, that it's all convoluted.
Well, and that's the thing is
it's too there's too many strings going into the trying to control the puppet. You know what I mean? There's too many people up here doing this, and it just goes everywhere and it ruins it. So,
well, and I think that's the biggest issue here is you have something where they actually tried to sell us something it's not. I mean, it's the old adage that I said before, where it's you go to a steakhouse and you order a steak, you order a prime rib or whatever, and they bring you a big chunk of hamburger, and you're like, this isn't what I ordered. And they're like, well, it's beef. You know, or Andre's other one that he did where, you go in and you order a steak and they bring you out a fish and they're like, well, this isn't what I ordered. And it's like, yeah, but this is better for you.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the
Right.
better analogy, really. But like, yeah, it is still, they both fit, and that's the thing, and that's what they're doing with this. And this is even the worst of all, because they didn't hide it with Ghostbusters and all this other stuff they did before, but this they did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So.
they hide it. And to everyone that's still in shock in the chat, I see some are, except Luffy's gods who knew this already. In the canon right now, He-Man and She-Ra are no longer related. Filmation, where they were part of the same property, that never happened. Now they are Marvel and DC. And will they ever be reunited? Well, that depends on Universal, what they choose to do with it once everything reverts fully to them. They already have She-Ra fully, so it depends on what they will do in the future. Right
And
now,
Douglas strikes
complete
again.
separate.
The only thing he's missing in this picture is a Ninja Turtle and maybe SpongeBob. But yeah, that's
There it is.
And actually, Jason isn't there anymore. He was, but they fucked. This is how fucked up Paramount is, guys. They could have made a Jason movie for years, and they fucked around and lost the license. And their excuse was the Ring remake or whatever it was didn't do well. So
I was so freaking lame. I mean, they could have been pumping out a Friday the 13th movie every single year. And honestly, I didn't think the remake was that bad. I mean, as far as remakes go, that was a pretty decent one. But even now, the time frame between that remake and now is the longest time frame without a new Jason movie since the creation of the franchise.
They had no less than 3 different Jason properties in development at Paramount, and they killed them all.
And they could have made them all easily and cheap.
There was like 10 different fan films in the interior that were almost as good or better than some of the movies. But yeah, that whole thing is messed up. Another rights convolution thing we never really got to, but it still hasn't quite worked itself out, so it still could come one day. But yeah, it all boils down to New Line Cinema buying the rights back in the 90s to just Jason. Not Friday the 13th, not any of the other characters, just Jason. And then Paramount turned around and they were making an Interstellar with Chris Nolan, and Warner Brothers like, oh, we don't like that. Chris Nolan's ours. So how about this? We'll give you the rights back to our portion of the South Park sequel, and we'll give you Jason back for 5 years, which for them is a great deal because they have all the other rights over there.
You can make in 5 years you can make at the very least 5 Jason movies
or
at least 4.
At least 4, right?
Yeah, at least 4 you can make in that time. And if you're really good, if you plan it out, you can make 6. I mean, you can approach it like a TV series and just keep on releasing them. So yeah, there's no excuse. A property like Jason, like you write the script in a weekend and you start filming on the Monday.
You can film it in your backyard, for fuck's sake. Hey, Yellow Flash, how you doing, buddy? I saw him flash up in the chat here. I was going to highlight it, but I can't find it now. But we do have Xenobit here. In 30 years, Kevin Smith will do a reboot of Midnight's Edge hosted by Brie Larson and Leslie Jones.
There you go.
Oh,
the who's who.
I'm going to be replaced by Leslie Jones, obviously. Xenobit says, no, Tom, you ordered a steak and got... You're going to have to say that.
Surströmming. That's the Swedish thing that smells like 10 dead animals.
Yeah, that thing you were talking about. Mr. Tickle Trunk says, growing up, we boys admitted to each other that we watched She-Ra and Jem after He-Man, G.I. Joe, and Thundercats. All the girls only watched Thundercats. That's not totally true, actually, Mr. Tickle Trunk. The reason She-Ra exists is because they realized that the Motu audience was 20% female, which was
some have even claimed up to 40% female.
Yeah, some even more.
So let's say at least 20%.
Yeah.
And between 20 and 40, that's quite a span. But okay,
I can see why.
Let's say 30 then. Let's average out to 30%.
And I can see why, because I brought this up. I can't remember which podcast it was in the last couple of days, but if you look at the original Motu line, the colors they use, the schemes
Mhm.
they use, the way they're put together, it's almost like they were put together by an advertising firm. Like they're meant to catch your eye and they're visually appealing. And that's my one gripe about the 2000X series is they muted them down so much and designed them, whatever word it is you came up
Yeah,
with.
over designed.
Yeah, over designed them so much. It's like, no,
Too,
simple works.
that too had to be 25% different. But you know what? They got away with it because they had great scripts. And this is what I've always said about any such deal where it has to be different. That's no excuse for not doing it right. Just look how people embrace the 2000X series. We would have preferred it if it had been made in the same style as this series right here. That would have been better, but still the writing was top notch on it.
Is there anywhere out there where we can watch that? Because I actually haven't seen it. I'm kind of curious now.
The 2002 series?
Yeah.
This is the thing. It's out there. You have to. We do not condone piracy or anything like that, but
No.
reality being what it is,
YouTube,
surf sharking it really is the only way to get it.
I
right
think
now.
there are some episodes on YouTube, though, if I'm not
There may be
mistaken.
some episodes on YouTube. I know there are in Spanish and stuff like that. So the best way actually is to go on eBay and find a DVD set.
Okay.
Either that or
But
surf sharking
you
it.
are going to pay a lot.
Yeah, I'm not
You
going
have
to
to
pay
pay a lot for it. And I don't know that it is available on any streaming service or
Not
anything
that I
like
know
that.
of.
It's like they buried it. Which I think is deliberate. I think that has to do with the fact that the company that has the rights to it, they don't have the rights to make anything more. So there'd have to be like some kind of profit sharing, and someone else.
As far
would
as I know,
profit
it's under
if they were
classic
released.
media, which would have been reverted
Exactly,
to Universal.
exactly. That's what I mean. Universal have that too.
All right.
Why would they put it out if they're not going to fully benefit from it? Like, for instance, if they were to put it out right now, it would boost Revelations that they don't get any stake in, other than like some mandatory licensing fee. Whereas if they wait for everything to revert, then they can eventually put it on Peacock or something.
See, yeah, and that's the other thing is I'm curious about how Orko works. And I know this is a bit of shop talk, but Andre and I have gone back and forth on this.
I think that the differences there are
I think there was an
exaggerated.
Yeah, I think there was an agreement made, and as long as he's different enough from the Filmation version, they can get away with it for now. But in 2023, that might change. And that's the thing is, I don't think that the rights get so convoluted as some people are saying, but I think it will boil down to what will Universal do? And that's the thing I keep hearing back is that Universal doesn't like to play ball. Before it was classic media and other companies and holding companies that have every reason rhyme in the world to work with somebody and take your money. Universal, on the other hand, is much more controlling from what I've heard. So that's where I think the fear is creeping in.
Yeah.
But Olaf brings up a good point. The She-Ra toys did look a bit different, and I think that's what mainly killed the whole thing. I don't think it was the show. I think it was that the toys didn't fit with the Motu line. So
yeah, you know why? That's because it was the female the women's section, or like not the women's section, but basically the employees for the girl toys in Mattel, the ones that did Barbie. They were really, really angry at the guys doing the boys' toys with He-Man, because they suddenly, for the first time in history, were outselling them. And they would have none of that. So they were basically able to politically maneuver in such a way that they got the He-Man line all of their own in She-Ra, and they were able to usurp the Hordak and his villains for the She-Ra series. And then they proceeded to make like the girls line, which is why the She-Ra toys are basically Barbie toys.
But I would argue
why Hordak wasn't part of it, because he was already part of the He-Man line. They just usurped them for the She-Ra series.
And Augie Ben Doggy, you're partially right. And here's where I will argue that the She-Ra series, on the other hand, outside of where it goes really, to cutesy side of things that I don't enjoy. But overall, it was more of an extension of Motu than it was a spinoff, because technically She-Ra is season 3 and 4 of Motu, right? Because there's 2 seasons of She-Ra, right?
Yes, there's 2 seasons of it.
Yeah, so that would be season 3 and 4 of Motu. So
for all intents and purposes, She-Ra is season 3 and 4 of Motu. Yeah.
Yeah. And
that's what was made instead of season 3 and 4.
I would argue still that She-Ra was that much more interesting and great of a character because of Lou and Erica Scheimer and all the stuff they did and contributed. Because if you left it to the toy people, it would have been a bigger mess than it was.
Yeah,
because they were arguing, like Andre said, behind the scenes about it as it was. So,
and White Knight, as you say, only She-Ra toy I ever bought was Hordak. Here's the thing: Hordak was a He-Man toy, so then you bought no She-Ra toys, because Hordak was released under the He-Man line. That was already out, because he was like planned for season 3 of He-Man anyway, but then it got usurped. And it became season 1 of She-Ra instead, and they got it for that. So yeah, I was going to go through the final super chats here before we start. Start winding down and wrapping up here today. So let's see. Planar Aspect suggests a conspiracy. Make a bunch of garbage so the fans will rush back to the proper revamp. I'm so hyped Ghostbusters, it ain't funny. They likely know that. Well, yeah, that would be a very bad plan, but I agree that might very well be the final outcome. Dr. Coffin Nail says, I first watched the original He-Man/She-Ra cartoons a few years ago with my daughter for the first time.
Cool.
They're not bad. Didn't deserve this crap. No, indeed they didn't.
No.
That's the thing, is I think people are misremembering, and it's not people's fault. It's mainly, Universal's fault for not allowing them to be out in the public so much. Like now you can go get, like, I think He-Man at Walmart, but they're very crappy versions.
Mm-hmm.
They're like reprocessed versions. And Andre, I've been trying to figure that whole thing out too. That's a whole nother.
That's a whole other video that we'll put down.
In and of itself is how they destroyed, and we brought it up a few times, the initial everything for Masters of the Universe and She-Ra.
Oh my god, it is a fuck you.
It's a travesty.
I want to cry. Like, for instance, you know, like how in that video that we put out earlier today, we made reference to how they rotoscoped the original animation, and we even showed a picture of the actors, or rather the bodybuilders and fitness ladies that were there in costume, that they filmed doing the movements. That footage existed. The footage of those people doing the movement that they would basically trace to do the animation, it existed up until Hallmark. You know what they did with it? They burnt it, just for shits and giggles. Without making any copies or anything. They just flat out burnt it. All the bonus
35 millimeter masters and 16 millimeter prints.
Yeah. All the bonus features and outtakes and any behind them, they just burnt it all. Everything. So yeah, nice going. That's like one of the worst acts of cultural vandalism is in modern history, and it was modern history because this happened in 2002.
Yeah, and unless somebody's lying, no, they specifically said they destroyed it out of almost spite.
Yeah, out of spite, because just out of spite, because there was no reason to. They could have stored it if they wanted to. They just did that.
And this is the same
here's
thing,
the difference.
kind of thing here. Yeah, but only on a
no,
worse
this is
level.
worse. This is worse.
Yeah, I was just saying that. Yeah, it's worse actually, because it was.
Yeah.
They could have kept it.
Yeah.
They had it, all of it.
No reason to kill any of it, right?
No,
Yeah.
so they just
because
did it
in the case of the BBC, they this was when TV was still a new thing and stuff. They didn't foresee that anyone would ever want to rewatch this stuff ever again. So it wasn't just Doctor Who; it was everything. It was all the TV series. Like, so many things are just lost forever. Like, for instance, the very first adaptation of Isaac Asimov's Caves of Steel. It's lost, gone forever. We only have like some stills left because they They filmed it, they showed it once, and then they recycled the tapes to record something else, probably Doctor Who or something. And they recycled that too. So that was kind of like how it was at the time.
Tape ain't cheap,
but
Andre. Tape ain't cheap.
No, exactly. So that's what they did. So like at this time when this happened, like in the 50s and 60s and stuff, in their defense, they didn't foresee that it would ever be a need or demand to actually rewatch and preserve this stuff. But Hallmark burned all of this in 2002.
Douglas fixed the picture. He removed Jason and added the turtles. Thank you so much.
There you go.
Nice. There you go.
And
Very
SpongeBob.
nice.
And SpongeBob.
Yeah, only missing Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah, but we can hope that they're still safe.
Yeah, let's hope that
Mike has, I think, a little bit of. He's not having control. He doesn't own him, but he can't really do him without him. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know? Because the only time they did was that the wrestling one.
Yeah, but moving on here, we have a couple more
Death
super
match.
chats to go through here. Nicholas Horton says for £10, the Snake Men were also planned for the Filmation show because there were figures for King Hiss, Cobra Khan, Rattler, and Tongue Lasher. Rattler and Tongue were moved over to She-Ra.
Yeah, because isn't that
Were they? I don't recall them being there.
I think they were total. I don't know about the She-Ra part, but I know they were in Motu, but they never wound up in the series. Did they wind up in the She-Ra series?
I don't recall that any of the well, maybe, but I don't recall any Snake Men ending up there.
Oh,
I know the entire evil horde. They ended up in She-Ra. I don't. Of course, I don't know that they
have a
didn't.
reference right here.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And Cyber Soldier wonders, did you guys hear about New York Times and Jason Momoa?
No.
No. Tom, can you go and check out what the hell is up with New York Times and Jason Momoa?
Snake Men or that? I guess I'm doing Jason Momoa.
Yeah, do Jason Momoa.
The Snake Men will have to wait. I'm just flipping through. I don't see any Snake Men in here, but
yeah, I don't.
Because they did use them in the 2000 series. Because didn't they initially have some like tie to like Tila's armor and her staff or some shit like that?
Well, certainly the sorceresses.
And that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So Snake Mountain and all that shit. Yeah. So they allude to it and whatever, but it is in the 2000 series. I think they got to some of it anyway. But all right, Jason Momoa and what now?
New York
I think
Times.
I know what this story is. I think I know which one it is.
Yeah. Meanwhile, this says that Garfield is now part of Viacom. Yep. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, they bought
that. Yeah. All right. Cool. And okay, to tell us the Jason Momoa story.
Well, I'm trying to find it here, but the gist of it is he was asked. Okay, here it is. So again, take the kitties out of the room. He was asked about some of his encounters, his dolphin love encounters. There we go, on Game of Thrones.
What?
And do they actually have the video here? Oh no, it's just kind of a stupid thing. Never mind. There are no stupid questions, but there are icky ones, according to Jason Momoa. The 42-year-old Hawaiian actor went cold during an interview with New York Times journalist David Marchese. If I'm saying that right, after the writer asked Momoa if he regretted filming a graphic dolphin love scene during his breakout performance as Khal Drogo on HBO's Game of Thrones. The pilot episode of the series saw Momoa's barbaric warlord Drogo assault and force himself upon his would-be queen Daenerys. Am I saying that right? I don't know. I never watched the fucking show. Daenerys. Okay. Amelia Clark's character. When Marchese asked whether Momoa thinks differently about those scenes today, he replied, "Well, it is important to depict Drogo and his style. You're playing someone like it's Genghis Khan." He continued, "It was a really, really, really hard thing to do, but my job was to play something like that, and it's not a nice thing, and it's what the character was. It's not my job to go, would I not do it?" So yeah, he basically... He goes, then he continued, "I've never really been questioned about, do you regret playing a role? Well, put it this way, I really did it, not doing it again." So yeah, it's a really stupid question.
Yeah, that's a horrible question from the reporter. Like, do you regret doing what was required of you as an actor? That's dreadful.
Yeah,
I mean, seriously, like the New York. This was the New York Times. You said, or was it the New York Post?
So anyway, moving on.
Whichever one it was, shame on them.
Yeah, Momoa said, I wanted to bring something up that left a bad feeling in my stomach when you brought up Game of Thrones. You brought up stuff about what's happening with my character and would I do it again. I was bummed when you asked me that. It just feels icky. Putting it upon me to remove something, as if an actor even had the choice to do that. You were not really allowed to do anything. There are producers, there are writers, there are directors, and you don't get to come in and be like, I'm not going to do that because this isn't kosher right now and not right in the political climate. Cryborg. That never happens. So it's a question that feels icky. I just wanted you to know that. So I guess he confronted him on it.
Oh, good, very good.
But anyway, it's kind of funny because I think that's kind of poignant with what. I think one of his co-stars should take heed of his words there about the fact that it's not up to an actor sometimes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to get that jab in there.
Yeah. All right then. With that out of the way, let's move on to the last few super chats. Don't remember if we got this one. Mr. Tickletrunk said, growing up, we boys admitted to each other we watched She-Ra and Gem after He-Man. G and Joe and Thundercats. So all the girls only watched Thundercats. Yeah, we got that one. Well, now that's how we started. And then Xenobit says Kevin Smith was supposed to study Conan. They gave him a copy of Red Sonja by mistake. But even she is not such a bitch that
Red Sonja is a badass.
Here. Yeah, exactly. And Xenobit also says people in the chat are spelling gem as gem with a G. Epic fail. Yeah,
probably because of whatchamacallit, the correct Grammarly or something's correcting there. Or they're doing voice to text or on your phone or something. That's probably it. But then again, who knows?
Yeah, maybe. And then Dale. He states that Rattler and Tongue Lasher both appeared in She-Ra and He-Man Filmation cartoon. Now I know that they were in the He-Man, but were they in She-Ra as well? Well, okay, I guess so.
I didn't get a chance to really look through it, so I'll have to look again. But yeah, I haven't seen She-Ra nearly as much as Motu. But
yeah, no,
Dr. Coffinails, please to you to let me sleep.
Yeah.
For once.
Because like I've seen all episodes of He-Man, but I've only seen like a third of episodes of She-Ra, I think.
Honestly, I don't know if I've ever seen all of She-Ra, to be honest.
No, I know I haven't.
I don't think I've ever
seen. Oh, here we got. Nicholas Horton says Rattler and Tongue appeared in only one episode of Filmation She-Ra as Horde members. Oh, okay. There you go then.
That answers that one.
Okay.
Yeah, it does. All right, excellent.
And with that, I think, are we caught up, or did you have more?
Then no, we are caught up. Ben Lunch says that I think that the Snake Men were in the comic and not in the cartoon, and yeah, this is partially true. Some of the Snake Men were in the cartoon, but not all of them. King Hiss, for instance, was never in the Filmation cartoon. He was only in the mini comics. But he had a very prominent role, and a badass one at that, in the 2000X series. And with that, we are absolutely, completely up to speed. So with that, I would like to say thank you to MattVader, and before that, Matt Kadish, both of Salty Nerd Podcast fame, for showing up. Link in the description.
I'm going to have a chat with him because every time I come on this show, it's because he was on first and then he leaves after he's talked about all the good stuff. And then I'm just kind of sat here to, kind of sit here and nod my head afterwards. So no, that's all good. He's a cool dude. So.
Yeah, well, he's also a busy man. So
yes, he is.
There is nothing bad about it. So yeah. But anyway, thanks to both of you for coming here. Check out the Salty Nerd Podcast. Link is in the description. You can also go to the webpage saltynerdvideo.com. that you see in Matt Vader's description right here. We are going to be back again, of course, on Friday. Then presumably we're going to have Tom Conkle joining us. And I'm sure there's probably going to be some more scripted content between here and there. Also tomorrow there's Midnight's Edge in the morning. No, sorry, there's Midnight Espanol in the morning, plus Midnight's Edge After Dark in the afternoon, evening, depending on where you are. Did I forget anything then, Tom?
I don't think so. I think we're...
I got one thing to say.
Yes. Go for it.
Next week here in Vegas, they're having the annual big Star Trek convention, and the Salty Nerd podcast is going to have a booth in the vendor area, and we're all going to be there all week long, and we're also going to be hanging out at the Nerdrotic meetups. So if anybody's coming to town for those or for the convention, pop on over, say hi, say hello, and let's meet. Let's have some fun. It's going to be a fun week. So. It's that.
All right, excellent. Yeah. With that, with that though, I do believe that Tom, it's time for some koalas in the rain.
Koalas in the rain, koalas in the rain, no fucks given. Koalas in the rain.